Welcome back to another episode of the R&B Fantasy podcast. My
Who
name's
is this?
Jake. I'm the guest on this episode.
We've been
I don't know
hijacked.
why I'm doing the intro, but I'm here for it.
We've been
Guys, how you
hijacked.
doing today?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing
Ryan?
just fine, man. Happy to have you on here.
Very
I'm
excited.
not-
Our first guest, our first special guest.
I feel honored, boys. We were
Had to
just
start off
talking
with a
about this
bang.
before we recorded. It's like we've been in leagues together for years, and this is like the first time that all three of us have ever even spoken to each other.
Literally.
Even, I don't want to say in real life, but like not through text.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Text and
wild.
Twitter,
Fucking
really.
3 years playing together. Holy cow.
It's been a minute.
Way too damn long. All right. Well, for those of you tuning in, we are going to basically just deep dive the dynasty startup draft that we had done about 3.5 weeks ago that we had finished. If you guys go check out the previous episodes, you can see the breakdowns of rounds 1 through 10 through the first 3 episodes of the pod. Now we're just kind of break down our whole rosters, like because Jake is also in one of our leagues as well. So we will kind of get rolling with that, and we'll show the board. And either one of you want to start breaking down your teams?
I feel like we should let Jake start because on like the first episodes, they heard us kind of talk about our picks a little bit. So I think for starters, we should hear the perspective of the third team.
Let's do it. Yeah. So got the 105. Normally one of my favorite spots to pick in. But as always, had to see what kind of value I could get by moving back. The value was too good to pass up. So as much as I would love drafting Lamar, I've got like a 40% rostership of Lamar through like nearly 40 leagues. So I've got plenty of Lamar. I've got plenty of
Same.
Stroud. I've got plenty of Hurts, plenty of Allen. I really only have like one Mahomes, and that's just because I never end up with an early enough pick to get him.
Yeah, same. Never ever.
So I was like, let's move back here. And so I made the trade with MCP over there, moved back, got the 2.5, 3.5, sent him 105 in my first. And then the board came around to me. And I'm not going to lie, I forgot how sharp some of the guys, AKA Boyd, is in these leagues. I 100% took a rookie pick thinking Kyler would fall to me to 2.8, but it's the 103. I have some flexibility there. I can move that pre-draft if I want to, but realistically, like we have 3 good quarterback prospects, and I have 2 good enough quarterbacks to get me by anyway in Purdy and Geno. So 103, worst case, I get one of Marvin or Nabers. Best case, I get one of Caleb, Drake, or Jaden. So I get a quarterback or a already top 12 dynasty wide receiver by most people's standards. So really couldn't complain about that first pick. After that, Bijan at 2.8 was just too good to pass on. I just couldn't do it. So I had to do it.
The RB1 at the RB2. I mean, come on.
Yeah. When I see Jahmyr Gibbs go off the board in front of me,
It's like opens up the gates. You're like, okay, RBs are going.
literally, because you never know, especially in dynasty superflex drafts, like especially when you're with a bunch of people that are like in the space, like most of everybody in here is.
Mhm.
You never know when running backs are going to start going. Like I did a startup earlier this offseason where the first running back didn't come off the board until 311.
Jesus.
So it's like you never know if the league's going to be wide receiver heavy, running back heavy.
Yeah, some
It's
people
deep.
just hate. They just fade them.
Yeah, and I don't get me wrong, I'll draft like that too if the board calls for it. Like if it's the opposite situation where like I'm coming on the board at 2.8 and there's 3 running backs gone, I like 5 running backs, and then after that it's like I'll just take whoever falls, I guess.
Yeah.
So there's so many
Shit.
there's so many question marks that I was like, I'll just wait. But Bijan 2.8, just incredible value there.
2,000-yard season incoming.
I'm praying
Book
for
it.
it. I have
Book
too
it.
much Bijan. So what would you guys have done when I took the 1-3? Obviously, hindsight 2020, Kyler, I would have 100% taken there. But besides that, like, would you have passed on the 1-3 for anybody afterwards, knowing that you have another pick coming up, like 2 spots after?
I probably would have just
It was
gone
actually
Kyler with the possibility of thinking that the 103 will be there, but that's just kind of like a risk. Same like risk that you took, but with the opposite direction, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Which is hindsight. I wish I would
yeah,
have done
exactly.
that.
It's all hindsight.
But again, like I'm sitting there. I'd done another startup where I was doing 2 startups at the same time. And in that one, Kyler fell to like the 210. And everybody in the league was like not really clowning the pick, but like I like Kyler, but I don't like him at 210. And I'm like, I like him at like 110.
Yeah, like I would love Kyler at 210. Give me that all freaking day.
No offense, but like Herbert and Burrow, I say no offense because Ryan took Burrow, but like I have Kyler ranked higher than both of them in my dynasty rankings. So
Which I think is valid. I mean, Kyler is like so underrated as a dynasty asset. It's like the
yeah,
ACL cost is still baked in for some reason.
it is because
It's weird.
there's no reason he should be going in the second round.
Yeah, he was
Like,
going like mid first round before he tore his ACL.
yeah,
Now
it
he's just not.
Can I
And he's
explain
gonna
my
get a wide
rationale for why
receiver.
I disagree with that?
yeah,
Why I think Joe Burrow. So in a 4-point passing touchdown league, I would be more inclined to take Kyler first. But because we're in the 6-point, I just like the upside of how many touchdowns Burrow could have in a season. Whereas, like, yeah, I think Kyler could definitely get around that 30 mark, and he's got like the legs. But I don't know. To me, like, I could see a like close to 500-point season from Burrow, which I
yeah.
can't see that from Kyler. So that's mainly why I went with him over Kyler, because I was debating him on the turn, but then I'm like, I got to get a wide receiver.
Yeah, and I get that to an extent. For me with Burrow, it just boils down to like there's enough question marks for me. Like he's already 27. His rookie deal's about to kick in, so he's going to lose some pieces around him. Or his rookie deal's about to be done. His extension's about to kick in, so he's going from basically no cap hit to 50 million really, really quick. So the Bengals are going to have to adapt around that. I think pieces are going to go away, but even with the 6-point passing touchdowns, if you do the math on that, say he throws 40 touchdowns. Well, that's only 2 extra points per touchdown. So you're talking 80 points, whereas Kyler can make that up with 500 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns, which is
Right.
something that Kyler can do basically consistently every year. So while he's going to still probably score a little bit more points overall, Kyler's been such a nasty fantasy asset. He's been a top 12 fantasy quarterback in points per game every year that he's played. It's just really hard for me to put Burrow above him. I know there's the injury concern with Kyler, rushing quarterbacks. I understand all of those arguments. For me, it just goes off of pure ceiling. Because with Dynasty, I'm never thinking of really any position more than 2 years out, just because I'm so trade happy and I know that I'm going to have at minimum like 25% roster turnover every single year. So while I think Burrow may be a better asset in 4 or 5 years, Kyler is going to be the better production asset for me over the next 2 or 3, in my opinion, just because of rushing upside. And if he gets Marvin, it's going to give him a level of receiver he's never had outside of a short spurt with, D-Hop. But even then, like we're talking much later down the line D-Hop versus like prime D-Hop.
Right. Yeah, I can get that. I'm trying to pull up the numbers here, but that whole rationale that you had mentioned with Kyler, how I was expecting you to take him, and I was very curious as to why you had taken the 103 instead of Kyler, because that was actually a point I made when we were going over the first 2 rounds. But I guess that whole rationale that you explained kind of explains why, because you were hoping that Boyd wouldn't take him there. But
yeah, I was
can't have
looking at the
everything.
board. I was like, I was looking at it, and I'm like, I feel like he's going to make it back to me. Like it's one of those things where I trusted my gut and I shouldn't have, because realistically, like if I go Kyler there, what's your pick, Boyd?
God, I probably would have
AJ Brown,
gone.
maybe one of the running backs.
I probably would have gone 103, or maybe would have forced one of the quarterbacks, I guess. But I don't like any. I don't like any of the quarterbacks that went afterwards as much as I would have liked Kyler.
Yeah, that was the thing.
I guess like maybe Jordan Love, like value wise, and then try to trade him. But like, I never like taking someone to trade them.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't like to make a move knowing that I'm doing that move to make another move. Like there can be benefits to have with that, but that also insinuates, like, especially right around draft time, like if I take a player during the draft that I think is a value, I'm not taking him as a value to trade him. I'm taking him as a value for my team, because the rest of the people in my league clearly don't value him that way for him to be a value. So there's enough, like, because that discount gets kind of baked into the draft cost, like I'm the same way. And there's such a drop off for me from like that Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence tier to Jordan Love, Dak, like the players after him. So for me, knowing that, I wish I could have taken Kyler and then I would have just gotten the 104 or Bijan there. But again, hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight, yeah, it's all hindsight.
Mhm.
But I agree with the Kyler like being the end of the, like the not the end, but like here being the end of the tier.
Yeah,
Like, I think after that it's just not. I don't have like super confidence as like a quarterback one, but like everybody before that, 100%. Like I got faith in.
yeah. Don't get me wrong. I would love to have Joe Burrow on a team.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm never going to be mad if Joe
Or
Burrow's a
shiesty.
quarterback on my roster, unless you're watching my Keep Trade Cut episode where he's at the time of recording. I don't know if it's still that way, but on Keep Trade Cut, Hurts was behind Burrow, which is just insanity to me.
That's asinine.
And it isn't something that you ever see in leagues because, like, if you look at the DLF startup ADP, Hurts is quarterback 2. Like, there's no reason he should have been down at 6. But then, like, if you were doing a trade, like the trade calculator on Keep Trade Cut, you could send Burrow and you can get Kyler in 111. And like I'm doing that every time.
I would love that.
So
I would do it for a third.
yeah, like any plus is a plus.
Yeah,
there.
like just because they're like the same tier for me.
Yeah, it just makes so much sense. But after that, after Bijan, we see, a lot of guys that I really liked. And I'm not going to lie, this was a pick I didn't want to make, but nobody wanted to trade for it, which is why I ended up making the pick at 3-5. Just because, like, I feel like the 3rd and 4th round, there's a lot of that's where you can get the most value, but that's where you can also lose the most value if you overdraft a guy that you like, hoping he's going to be a 3rd or 4th round guy in the future. Like there's just such a drop off in terms of production and talent. But Purdy, he's not going anywhere. San Francisco's not replacing him. He's cheap. He's good enough. Worst case scenario, if I were to go wide receiver with 1-3, getting Purdy as my quote unquote quarterback 1. Most people have him as a dynasty top 12 quarterback. In this draft, I got him at quarterback, 13, I think, if I'm counting that right.
14 maybe.
Yeah, 14. So quarterback 14 or 15. Yeah, I love Justin Fields, but with enough question marks about where he's going to be. Is he going to be a starter? Like, I've obviously heard some things being in the Chicagoland area of some rumored spots for him and some, kind of have an inkling of teams that are interested out, even some that haven't necessarily been mentioned in the media so much. But again, it's all speculation at this point. Like we're all just hopeful. Like if Justin Fields is a starting quarterback next year, he's probably going to be like a top 8 fantasy performer.
Yeah,
but
he'll be good for fantasy.
I don't know where he's going to be. So Purdy there was like the best of a bad situation where it's like coming to me and I'm like, I like Nico. I don't want to take Nico. I've already got the 103. Do I want to take the 104 or the 105? I like Olave. I think he's a little overpriced. CMC, good value, but I don't want to start, rookie pick, running back.
Yeah,
like
that would have been a bold strategy.
Yeah, so Purdy was, he's the last quarterback. Not really the last, like Tua, and then there's a drop off for me. So I wanted to grab, some value there. So I took him. And then Ayuk came around. I said it in the chat afterwards. I was like, I didn't mean to take Brandon Ayuk when I drafted him, but I did. So, and it got me a stack. So I'm just remembering this is 3rd round reversal draft. So ignore everything I said about some of that. But yeah, so I got the last quarterback that I felt was in a tier. I think there's a pretty stark drop off, value wise from him to
to
Goff, who went next. Like Goff, a guy I'm never going to be mad that he's like my quarterback 2 on a roster, but I couldn't take the risk of passing on quarterback again there. And it created the stack with Ayuk, who I admittedly accidentally drafted. But I even said it in the chat afterwards. I was like, why the hell did I draft Brandon Ayuk? But looking back on it, looking at where I took him in the draft is not far off of where I value him. So like at the moment,
it's not bad.
Yeah, like the upside's there. If he goes somewhere else, I think he can be like a true difference-making wide receiver for a lot of teams.
That boy, good.
He's one of the, in my opinion, like the top 15 route runners in football. Like does San Francisco help him? Sure. But his skill set is what makes him so good for San Francisco rather than like him needing to be a guy that San Francisco is scheming open.
Yeah, he's not just a system or a product of the system. Had my words in a little bit of reverse there.
And then, coming after the Purdy pick, I wanted Pittman. I'm not going to lie. he got drafted in front of me.
Oh,
That would
one
hurt
pick
me.
before.
But
You,
DJ Moore is
you
the
like
best
Pittman more than
consolation.
Moore?
I don't. I am saying I wanted Pittman, thinking DJ Moore wasn't going to be there.
Oh, okay.
So
I was like,
that,
you're a Bears fan, man. Like that's gotta be your guy.
and I was a DJ. I've been a DJ Moore guy forever. Like I like
Yeah.
guys who earn targets. That's
Yep.
my
Yeah.
favorite
He's
thing to
always done
have.
that. Yeah.
So, I wanted Pittman, thinking Moore wasn't going to be there. So when Pittman gets taken, I have Moore ranked right next to him in my rankings. Like it's the best consolation prize like you ever could have asked for, especially because you look at like the next wide receivers there. I think Waddle is incredibly overpriced. I think Devonta Smith is good, not great. Tank Dell, little rich for my blood, but not really kind of at the same time because the upside is so there. And then like Rashee Rice, like I think DJ Moore, where I got him, is a better value than all of those receivers where they were drafted.
Yeah, DJ Moore is, dude. He was so good this year. Like, I mean, like for years in Carolina, it was like that guy is going to be great. And
It was
then,
like we need more touchdowns.
yep,
And then the touchdowns
bang.
came, but we lost the yardage. And it's, it kind of all came together with
It's like, can
Justin
we come to
Fields.
fruition, please?
Yes. I was like, can we just, this guy's earning 30% of the team targets every
Put
single
it
year.
together.
Can we turn those expected fantasy points into actual fantasy points, please?
And it finally happened.
Yeah.
Now
And
you
then
get Caleb most likely.
it better. If
They better pick Caleb. I am a
They better
Lions
get
fan,
him.
but they better pick Caleb.
I'm fine with not picking Caleb only in the situation that we trade back with Washington to 2 and we get decent enough compensation to do so. Because I think Drake May is an awesome prospect. I think Jaden Daniels has a lot of upside, but again, I feel like we have better Jaden Daniels already in Fields. So, if we end up with Drake May at 2, but we got enough to trade back, I don't personally have May that far behind Caleb. That's apparently a hot take.
Yeah,
If
people
you
have been
look on
dogging
Twitter,
on May. People have been dogging on him.
they're dogging on him for the same reasons that they've hyped up 15 other quarterback prospects over the last 10 years. They're like, look at all this cool stuff he can do. And then with Drake May, it's like, yeah, but he does the cool stuff too much. It's like you would too if Devontae Walker was your wide receiver one. Like I would walk on that football field, look at my team, and be like, I guess I got to do this. So, I mean,
I'm gonna do it myself.
yeah, it's not even you can't even take it like the memes of like, screw it, somebody's down there, or like, screw it, he's down there. It's like, screw it, I'm right here. We're going to do it. I'm going to do it. So, but yeah, after DJ Moore, Hawkinson, we talked about it in the chat of the league after I made that pick. Just incredible value in a tight end premium league. He's going to earn a bunch of targets. Yeah, he might not start the season healthy, but my team is built to kind of manage that a little bit. And also, I think after he is back,
old.
yeah, he's 26.
Yeah, he's a young fella. Look at that. That's a young fella right there. No gray hair in sight.
Yeah, he's one of those players that like feels like they're way older than they are. It's like
Hawkinson
it's still
does go that way. He's been
it's
around
like
for a minute.
Yeah, it's like still kind of shocking to me that Amari Cooper isn't 30 yet. But then you remember like this Hawkinson played, he came out of college when he was 21. Same thing with like, with those younger players, like they tend to have longer careers because they were so talented that they could get out early. So just, had to soak up the value there on Hawkinson.
Yeah, the next pick was Kincaid. Like, I mean, like that's really good value for Hawkinson. Especially in a 0.75 tight end premium.
And I
Sucks he's
think,
hurt, but like that injury is clearly baked in.
yeah. And I think Kincaid is the single most overpriced tight end
I agree.
that we've maybe ever seen. Like, it's just,
I agree.
I don't think he was a good prospect. As always, people like to make the argument, yeah, tight ends take longer than develop. And it's like, yeah, but the good ones don't have to go to JUCO for 2 years and then go to a non-like SEC school to only really be good at the tail end of that. And like, there's just so much projection that goes into it that I like projecting players forward. But if I'm having to make my entire argument based off of projection, it's not something I'm a fan of. But that is something I kind of have to do with Tyjae Spears. That being said, I was a Tyjae Spears guy before it was cool. So, you live and you learn. But we knew
on the train.
Yeah. I am the train. Hop
And on the
aboard.
Tajay train.
But yeah, so just incredible value for me. You know, I think he's going to be a top 12 dynasty running back for everybody. And again, I talked about it before, where I don't really think of any position as more than 2 years out. With running back, I'm thinking of them this year.
Yep.
Like, I don't care. Like Bijan, you know, those top kind of 3 or 4 or 5 guys. I'm liking to project a little bit forward just because of the capital that I'm putting in. But after that, I'm like,
Yeah, in the middle rounds, it's like, what are you gonna do for me now?
exactly. And it's like, you know, looking at the board, you know, were there some picks like Kamara, Jacobs? Like, I love Kamara. I love Josh Jacobs. I don't know what team Josh Jacobs is going to be on. I don't know if Alvin Kamara is going to be a Saint, and if the team he's going to go to is going to let him be Alvin Kamara, if they're going to try and turn him into Brian Robinson. Like, I don't know what
Don't you put that evil on me.
I don't know what they're going to do. So for me, taking Spears there, you know, I just have to assume he's going to be the running back 1 in Tennessee. They showed a willingness to use him on passing downs, which is something we can't really ever say for Derrick Henry out of his career. So while I don't think Spears is anywhere near the, you know, the physical talent of a Derrick Henry, I think fantasy wise he can perform just fine. And then pretty much from this point in the draft on, it was just kind of soaking up value. So the rookie pick fell. You know, I was looking at the board. I was like, my build is kind of in that like fragile competitive state where it's like year 1 could go really, really well for me, but it also couldn't. And so if it doesn't, I don't want to overinvest in aging assets, just because, you know, I want to have some flexibility there with the build where I can make moves to hop forward if I need to, or, you know, I'm in a spot where I can also trade pieces away, still keep a nice core, but get some value there. So rookie pick there. I think that was the
112.
112. Yeah. So, you know, I'm getting the last pick of the round. Who am I going to take there? I don't know. I might mess
We'll
around and draft a
see.
running back. I might,
We'll see.
you know, see who falls. We're
Stay
going to find
tuned.
out. Maybe we live stream. I don't know.
Yeah, stay tuned.
But yeah, so then there, Deontay, I tweeted it the other day. I can't and won't quit Deontay Johnson. I'm just
You think
not
he
going to
gets
do
traded?
it. He wants it, or they're talking about trading him. I don't
Yeah,
think
you think he gets traded?
I would love him to be a Chicago Bear in a package for Justin Fields personally, but I think he does end up
That'd
getting
be
traded
spicy.
because I don't like people want to knock on George Pickens for like his attitude there, but like if Kenny Pickett
Kenny
was your
Pickett,
quarterback too, or Mitch Trubisky or Mason Rudolph, if those guys are your quarterback, like you're gonna have a little bit of an attitude too.
I'm gonna
Like,
be mad. I'm gonna be mad as
yeah,
hell.
you're
Kenny
not
Pickett
gonna
sucks.
you're not gonna be happy there. And then you know, Geno, starting quarterback in the 10th round, either my quarterback 2 or 3. Never gonna be mad about that.
Gino!
Like, never gonna be mad about that. And like the other quarterbacks that were there, like were too old. Like that's where I give like Geno gives me again just a little bit of leeway. Like he's 3 years or 4 years younger than Stafford, 3 years younger than Cousins. He's the same age as Derek Carr,
But better.
but
So
better.
that's the key part.
Exactly. So I get some value there of where like if I can move off him, like I think you're still going to be able to get late first in the like next year for Geno come playoff time. If I'm
People
not
are ready to pay and make the
yeah.
push.
Or like, I don't know, like the guy like Armani, like Kirk Cousins is quarterback too. Like if Kirk Cousins gets hurt again, or Jalen Hurts gets hurt, like you're gonna come looking at the quarterback market, and it's gonna be a lot cheaper for you for you to, you know, acquire Geno off of me than it is to go get like a Jordan Love, Dak, Purdy, whoever.
Yeah,
And
there was
then
like 8 season-ending injuries for quarterbacks last year. So
yeah, it was crazy. And then Pop Douglas, I think he's a dog, and there's literally no competition for targets there. So
pop.
W. Adam
They
Thielen,
better draft a receiver this year.
they need it so bad. Thielen, again, really no competition for targets. If he can even, you know, get back a little bit of the early season magic that he had last year and just spot starts for me, awesome. Tucker Kraft, the better tight end on the team,
I agree. And 2
coming in
rounds cheaper.
yeah, exactly. Coming at you know, Luke Musgrave, yes, he got drafted higher. He started the year as the starter. But once he got hurt, Tucker Kraft, obviously the starter. And then when Luke Musgrave came back, Tucker Kraft was still playing 60 to 80% of the snaps.
Tucker was tucking.
Yeah. He's a dog.
He was tucking.
Kendra could be the RB1
Really good value
in New Orleans. That too. Like, don't get me wrong. I like Jalen Warren. Jalen Warren should not be going nearly 5 rounds before Kendra Miller. It's just, I couldn't pass on that when it got there. Lockett, same kind of thing as Thielen. Just value slipping. I'll take it. Herbert, Chandler. And I mean, that's the story for the rest of my draft. Like Khalil Herbert.
Same, but different.
Yeah, could be the starter in Chicago. Ty Chandler could be the starter in Minnesota. Tyler Boyd, where's he going to go? I don't know, but he's going to be a slot wide receiver.
He's going to be a Chicago Bear. I don't know.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised by that. John Mechie. I love John Mechie. I thought he was a better prospect than Jameson Williams. He has more production in the NFL than Jameson Williams. I'd just like to throw that out there. Davis Allen, Tyler Higbee sucks.
True.
As a person and a player.
Get that bum out of here.
Yeah. Allen flashed. Maybe something comes out of that and it works. Gus, if he gets on a touchdown streak again, if he goes back to Baltimore, which I think he will. Again, value. Michael Thomas.
Mike Thomas was going crazy on Twitter yesterday.
He was. I love
Friday or whatever day it was.
Mike Thomas just basically being like, all these guys having to make up stuff because they broke. I'm not broke. I'll tell you the truth. I'm like, let's go, King.
Bro's like, great is great. I'm like, all right, man, talk your shit.
Until you can, what is it? Until you can catch 149 and 17, really 16, but I'll give you 17. Like, dude's a savage. I like savages on my rosters. And again, he's gonna go play somewhere. I don't know where it's gonna be.
Field. Yeah, it's good.
But he's gonna play. Darnell Washington. I just never drafted him before, so I thought it'd be fun. Literally the entire logic behind that pick.
He's a very human being.
Tyler Scott. He's a bear.
This is all pretty irregular. He's a bear.
Back end, just nothingness.
Bro said he's a bear.
He's
got
a bear.
Homer pick.
I made a Homer pick. Does it work? I don't know.
Who's your favorite pick of these last 5 rounds? Who's your favorite here?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. Honestly, probably Heineke.
Same.
Just because I love stacking quarterbacks at the end, just especially if we get a year like last year. But if any of those quarterbacks get a chance at either starting due to injury or they get moved and they get a chance that way, like I think especially if these like Kirk Cousins to Atlanta rumors have any bearing to them, Taylor Heineke's a lot more similar as a quarterback to Kirk Cousins than Desmond Ridder. So I think Heineke's going to end up winning the backup job there. So I just like stacking quarterbacks at the end. But yeah,
he's got more shoes to add to his collection.
Facts. He's got to get some more Jordans.
He's got some more coming. I can feel it.
Yeah. And then, Mike White, I don't know, maybe Tua gets another concussion and Mike White starts some games and I sell him for a third.
Yeah,
Jaron Hall.
How the last few years have been, it's so good to stack them on these quarterbacks. Like, the quarterbacks have been getting mauled, and every single time the backup gets at least a little bit of a value spike, and if you can get that in round 29, 30 or 31.
And then this is going to be the funniest thing I say about my draft this entire time. If you believe depth charts, got a starting quarterback in the very last round of the draft. Because Jaron Hall is listed as the starting quarterback on the unofficial depth chart for the Minnesota Vikings.
The value.
They ended the season with Hall as their starting quarterback. That organization is so unserious.
Yeah, it's great being in there.
That would be a glorious season to watch. They might as well sign Jameis if they're going to do that. Let's have some fun.
I would much rather watch Jameis just
have some fun.
Huck it 30 yards downfield, 70 yards downfield to Justin Jefferson 25 times a game.
Yes, please.
But yeah, I got a potential starting quarterback in the last round. Or, again, somebody gets hurt and I get a value spike. So, overall, I would give my draft. This isn't one of my favorites. I like my team, but it's not one of my favorites by any means. I'd give myself a solid B-.
I like it. Yeah, it's a fun draft.
And that's what I did with this one too. Like when you guys set this league up, you wanted it to be. I'm not saying I did this for content, but you were letting us know you're like, we're gonna build content around this. We want to have a lot of fun. We only want guys in here who are really committed. And so it was in a lot of spots, I took guys that I just don't have a ton of rostership of. Like I don't have a ton of DJ Moore. I don't have a ton of Brandon Ayuk. I only got my second Brock Purdy after this draft. Like I traded Justin Fields for him and got a pick swap in there too.
I like
so
that.
like
In your favor?
Yeah.
I like that. I would take him straight up. So I like that.
Yeah. So I sent like a late second and a third and got an early second.
I like that.
So I was like, literally, I was like, I'm just having fun with this. I'm just going to pick some guys that I like. If it doesn't work, this league ain't going anywhere. I can rebuild. I've done it plenty of times. I took a team from, an orphan I took over was in second to last place, and I won the whole thing the next year. Like I can rebuild if I need to. So I just had some fun with it, man.
I like that. I like that. I like a lot of value you got here, like especially on these like contingent running backs. I think Khalil Herbert's actually a pretty good player, so
I do too. He's a great runner.
Round 14 was dope. I was really hoping he would fall to me, but you freaking sniped me.
I'm glad that I could snipe you after you sniped me. You sniped me after the fact on Kyler.
You sniped me on the DJ Moore pick too, bro.
That one you should have known that one.
And then I traded. I did. As soon as I saw you was there, I'm like, he's not making it past him.
Yeah, there was no way.
So then I had to trade out of my pick. But yeah, I like your squad. There's a lot of like solid like core value and then a lot of like contingent value that can go up. And that's what I shoot for in the later rounds.
Yeah, and that's exactly what most people should be doing. Like in these rounds, like yes, there's the argument that if you want to compete year one, like you can take a Mike Evans who falls, a Cooper Kupp who falls. Like both of those guys are tremendous value. Same with Devontae Adams, like tremendous value in that point. But at the same time, like if you put too many of your eggs in the competing basket too early, like it sets you up for it's a lot harder to rebuild that way than if I have young guys that teams that, I'm not going to be the only Tyjae Spears guy in the league. I'm not going to be the only Pop Douglas guy. I'm not going to be the only Kendra guy. Like those older guys, like they go out of fashion in Dynasty so fast. That's the only reason those guys are 8th round picks when, like, no offense, I love Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed should not be getting drafted before Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, and Mike Evans.
Jaden Reed value is crazy to me because I was drafting a lot of him in like late round 2, early round 3 in rookie drafts.
Yep.
I'm just like, he's going where?
Yeah.
Like, it's just the overcorrection, in my opinion. Like, it's just, I don't know. And like kind of along that lines, like where you took Kendra, next year he could be going where you took Tyjae this year. Like
exactly
the value, he could just double in value.
And like, just don't get me wrong, I could try and make my team like quote unquote more competitive that year or like next year and have taken I could have taken Lockett there. I could have taken, a Gabe Davis there, like guys who we may not love, but like have shown the ability to produce in the NFL. Like we haven't seen a ton of what Kendra could do, but like you said, like Gabe Davis and Lockett, they're not going to be 7th round picks ever again. It's just never going to happen. Whereas Kendra could realistically double his value in that sense of going from a 14th round pick to a 7th round pick. And then I don't have to keep Kendra. I can go trade him and cash in on that value.
Yeah, and he's only 21. And at this cost, even if he goes to 0, if he turns into Zach Evans, then it's whatever. But I mean, he flashed in the couple games that he played last year, like at least when he touched the ball.
Exactly. So
yeah, it's a very good upside shot.
But yeah, I didn't reach for anybody, in my opinion. Maybe Brandon Ayuk is probably the only argument you could really make on me reaching for a guy. But after that, like, it's just really good value pretty much everywhere I picked.
I just have a hard time, like, with the Ayuk pick. Like, I wouldn't take Nico over him. I wouldn't take Olave. Like, it just, like, it seems appropriate to me. Maybe it's just early in the round, I guess, maybe. But, like, it just feels appropriate to me. I guess maybe I'm too high on him. But if we're high on it, we're high on it together.
I mean, I can tell you exactly. Let me pull up my ranks here, and I can tell you exactly like where like I do have Olave over him. I actually have Pittman over Ayuk too, but I think Pittman's underrated. But that's it. I could do an entire
Pittman is
hour.
Really underrated.
I could do an hour-long episode on why Michael Pittman is underrated.
I was trying to trade JSN for him, but the guy wouldn't bite.
Yeah, I don't blame him. But yeah, like I blame him. I have Ayuk, like the only wide receiver who went after Ayuk, who I have ranked ahead of him, is Chris Olave. But again, it's like I have a ton of Chris Olave. I want to have some fun. I don't have really any Brandon Ayuk. So I made a gut call that I took a guy. I have Olave at 9 and Ayuk at 11. So it's not even like I'm not reaching that far.
Yeah. At the very least have them in the same tier. Like
Yeah, I actually don't. Funny enough,
Really?
but yeah, I do have Olave and I have Olave and Pittman in a tier, and then Ayuk kind of starts the next tier for me.
What
But
if you
even
kicked this draft off with no Purdy pick and you doubled down on the receivers?
that would
That would
have
have been
gotten
bold. You would
so
have
if
had you would have had to have like maybe Bryce Young over Hawkinson. I don't know.
yeah, I would have had to do that, or like if I don't take Purdy there, so if I go like Ayuk, Olave, DJ Moore, assuming he falls,
Yeah, we're just
then
theory crafting here.
yeah, I'm gonna have to start getting desperate. I would have had to where I took Hawk, I probably would have had to take either Bryce or Baker, Tajay. Probably would have just if I started with that many wide receivers, I probably would have leaned full bore into wide receivers. Probably would have gone Kirk or McLaurin there, and then
Mhm.
it's a completely different team. It's
It
crazy
is
how
so
much like
it's so different. Yeah.
one
Mhm.
pick. Like I don't go into any draft like wanting to draft a specific way,
Mhm.
except for this one where I was like, I'm just gonna have fun. Like I'm not taking it too seriously where it's like I'm gonna kick myself for passing on value. Like I didn't kick myself because I don't think I really passed on any value. But it's like I walked in with no plan at the 105. Like, sure, I could have just taken Lamar, but then like I don't know. I don't get this. I don't get all of the 103 Ayuk, Purdy, and DJ Moore if I do that. So it's like while I did give up some quarterback value, I got value elsewhere. So being like trading back is really when I decided like, all right, I'm going to give myself some flexibility here. You know, I'm going to take some guys I like, take a little bit of upside, but like I never even then I never like I could have just kept drafting young guys and I wouldn't have an Adam Thielen, I wouldn't have a Tyler Boyd, I wouldn't have a Gus Edwards like and those are guys that could be semi impactful pieces for me even just
They
in my
actually,
flex
yeah, they
spot.
could actually turn value and at least like decent bye week fill in or injury fill in because God knows there's so many injuries.
Yeah. But and that's exactly why I don't go into drafts with a plan. Like my plan is the best guy available at that pick. That's what I did.
I agree. Ryan, what do you think of the team?
I like it. You said you gave yourself a B minus, so if you ended up getting Kyler instead of the 103, would that make your score go up? Like if that was like the only thing that was swapped, would you say it would be like a B or a B plus?
Yeah, I would bump it up to a B plus if I had Kyler instead of the 103 there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Still not quite
Yeah,
an
I mean,
A. Like
If you
there's
got Kyler, would you have gone Purdy?
um probably not, honestly. I probably would have gone 105 for being
Okay, over Olave.
yeah.
Okay,
Just because that gives me again
extra rookie pick and the installation of it.
yeah, it's the flexibility of like 105. I'm getting again one of Marvin, Malik, Jaden, Drake, or Caleb.
Yeah,
Like, so I'm getting a guy that I am a huge like super high on, but I could also wait until I'm on the clock with the 105 and move off
flip
of
it.
it for something else. Like
Yeah.
I could have had a little more flexibility there. But counterpoint to that, like if I take those picks, like I said, if I take one pick differently, my team looks completely different. Every other team, may
Yep.
completely flip their
Everything
strategy,
shifts. Yeah,
which is why I
everything
don't give
shifts.
myself like lower than a B because like I am happy with my team. Like I like my team. So I'm not going to give myself like a C plus or anything like that. But one pick, I'm saying Kyler instead of McPherson could have given me, a B plus. But at the same time, like my draft could have gone to shit really, really quick, and I could be giving myself like a D.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the way of the road, though. That's
Exactly.
Mhm.
dynasty.
That's the fun of it.
Then you get Boyd sniping you every other pick, so that doesn't help either.
I
Not
hate.
my fault.
I absolutely hate being within like 2 picks of him. It's the worst
Sorry.
because I
That's like
never,
me with P Fink.
I never seem to snipe Boyd unless it's like round 15 and later, and then he snipes me in the first 14 rounds, and it's like, all right,
Round 15 is where it really hurts, though. It's like, oh, I'm for sure getting this guy. He's definitely nope. It's Jake. They're gone. There goes my dreams and my hopes.
ugh.
Yeah, and your
It-
8 through 12 just pick run. That was annoying to watch just because like every single time I was thinking about getting a pick on the way back, it just got picked like right before. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm skipping this one now.
After like the third time, every time he came up to pick, I just assumed he was taking a draft pick. When I'm like looking there, I'm like, is Pop Douglas going to be here for me? Oh yeah, Boyd's just going to take a pick. We're fine.
And that did happen. All right, well, I guess I'll talk about my team for a little bit since we're kind of leaning that way. With this one, I started off by taking a bang. I took Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 1 off the board. I took him over Herbert. I took him over Burrow, who I guess like a lot of people might prefer. Maybe not Herbert with the the coaching change. A lot of people are down on him, but here I just honestly I took Jefferson with pretty much in my head. Like I had a gut feeling that I was either going to get Lawrence or Kyler. I assumed it'd probably be Lawrence, to be honest. Especially with your trade, I was really worried that I wouldn't get him. Um, but then the Jefferson pick worked out because I did end up getting Kyler, so I didn't really have to worry about getting a quarterback 1. I really don't know what I would have done there if I didn't get Kyler. It kind of was just like the tier fall off, like we discussed. Like the tier fall off after Kyler is just so real that I wouldn't have enjoyed picking like a Jordan Love
Yeah.
or a Dak. Like obviously Dak can give you the production, but the community is just kind of lower on him.
Yeah, Dak gives you the production, but you're also drafting a 30, 31-year-old
Yeah.
quarterback in round 2. Like it just doesn't feel great.
Exactly, yeah. It doesn't feel great to have as like your quarterback 1 cornerstone because you want that guy who like is a dog and is gonna be there for at least like foreseeable like long future because a lot of
Right.
people just like prefer the 26-year-old over the 30-year-old for obvious reasons, like especially a quarterback position. Like that guy, he could go for another 10 years versus another 5. Like people just like that in their heads. And then with my next one, I started building my tight end university here that I ended up adding on to later. Tight end 2, Trey McBride. I don't really love the pick, I'll be honest. I like it though. I like it enough. I definitely would have taken a quarterback because I was banking on getting Deshaun, but that didn't work out for me. So, but then that worked out with Bryce, I guess. So my idea kind of was the same. But I wanted to shore up that tight end spot because I didn't know when I'd get another one, especially in this kind of draft where it's a 0.75 tight end premium. Like people just might really want tight ends. So I might not have got another chance at like that core guy. And I think McBride is at the very least tight end 3. For me, he's tight end 2. And yeah,
I have him at 2. So
yeah. Laporta over him, I assume.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's my 3. I have Andrews still at number 2.
Yep. I can see an argument for Andrews.
I have Andrews at my 3. It's just age.
Andrews my 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an age thing. But Andrews not even that old, really. So I don't knock him. That's why he's my 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just need a little more from McBride for me to be confident to move him to 2 because he's almost there. It's just a matter of like.
Yeah, it wasn't like a full season stretch. I get it.
Yeah,
I feel that.
But it was a hell of a stretch though.
It was a hell of a stretch.
That's like the main reason I couldn't justify taking McBride where I took Ayuk is it was like I love Trey McBride. I've always been a Trey McBride guy, but we have a half season of
That's
production
the reason I don't love it.
in 2 years. So it's
not a lot of confidence there.
That and it's just like a little salty thing of like I used to be able to draft him in the 14th. Why am I drafting him in the 3rd?
Yeah.
Like that's the one hang up I have in Dynasty is like drafting guys that I used to think were values and are just like appropriately priced now. Like that's my hang up with a lot of guys.
And you're like, oh,
fuck. Reverse sunk cost fallacy. Like I don't even know how to describe it.
But yeah, so who's your guys 10 and 4? I feel like that's where it starts to get interesting in rankings.
I have Hawk.
It's either Hawkinson or Pitts for me, but if Pitts, I need a good season, so probably
I have Pitts
probably Hawk
and then Hawk, but they're the same tier.
I still have Kelsey ahead of Pitts.
Wow. I'm an ageist though, so I can't have. I don't know. For me, it's just the age thing.
Again, I'm thinking in
Gonzalez
shorter windows
for a while, so
yeah, I'm thinking in shorter windows than a lot of people are, and like I think there's going to be a concerted effort moving forward to take some pressure off of Kelsey in that offense. So I think he's still going to get his volume just because him and Mahomes have that connection, but I don't think he's going to be like teams aren't going to be able to hone in on Kelsey like they did at the end of last year, which is really the only reason that we saw any drop off was no wide receivers were stepping up until Rice did.
Yeah.
So his teams were like, we'll triple cover Travis Kelsey. Because what are they going to do? Throw it to MVS? He's going to drop it. Sky Moore is going to forget that he's on a football field.
MVS.
Like,
I mean, Rice still even struggled with drops too, so it wasn't even like he was perfect.
Exactly. So I still believe in Kelsey for the next couple of years. So I can't drop him past Pitts yet. If we get a good season out of Pitts this year, where he's within a couple points per game of Kelsey, I think I'll have to switch him. Again, just the age value being too drastic, but as of right now, I still prefer Kelsey.
Getting your tight end 4 2 rounds after Pitts is like really, really good then.
Oh yeah, it felt
I
so
think this
good
value is
making
really good just because it's the same tier for me. So
yeah.
All right, back to the regular scheduled programming. My next pick was up at the 407, but as I established earlier, I was really hoping to get DJ Moore here. Jake didn't allow that. I knew he wouldn't allow it. Honestly, I was hoping for Pitts as well, one of the two, because I still believe in Pitts, like a psychopath. I'm a masochist, I guess. I don't know.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm ready for another season of pain. But so I didn't really want like to take any one of the receivers here, and Ryan and I were talking about doing this trade. He ended up not wanting to do it because he also wanted DJ Moore. And so then I was like, all right, well, I'll try it with the two people behind Ryan. It ended up working out with KP. KP wanted to move up, and I moved back from the 407 to the 412, picked up a 2, gave up a 3, so it was a 2-3 swap in my favor. And then he ended up taking Jalen Waddle, and I ended up getting Jonathan Taylor, who I probably would have taken there anyway. So I guess it worked out really well in my favor in that theory, but it's a running back, so it could just blow up in my face. What do you guys think of taking like a running back here?
I mean,
you made the pick I would have made.
Okay.
Again, it's just like
the fact. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good. We're talking about a guy who like a year and a half ago was a first round startup pick.
Yep.
Like getting him in the 4th round, like I don't care that he was hurt last year. Like he still looked like Jonathan Taylor when he
he's
came
still
back.
one of the best running backs in the league,
So,
like talent wise. Like he is. He's not like how Swift was going really early. Like he's not. He's just better talent. Like,
100%.
he's still like there still is the fact that he's getting older, but he actually has like top running back talent. So he's going to continue to be presumably without injury a really really top tier running back.
Yeah.
And getting that at like 4 to almost the 5 turn with a lot of wide receivers who went before him. He's RB5 here? Yeah, RB5, the start of the end of the 4th, start of the 5th. I really like the value on GT.
Yeah. I couldn't pass it up if I were in your shoes there. So I get it.
And then I ended up taking another running back. If you would have told me that I would have had as more running backs than wide receivers through 5 rounds, I would have like not believed you. Same thing for quarterbacks. My most popular position through 5 rounds is the running backs, and I never would have believed you. But A-Chain, I got here at the 506. Before him went Higgins, Watson, London, JSN, Kyron. I don't really know if there's any, maybe London that I would take over him. But other than that,
I would still take Kyron over Achan.
that's fair.
But
that's fair. It's a
it's
size concern thing.
Yeah, it's a volume thing. Like Achan is gonna always have that explosiveness to him. He's gonna, have those game-breaking plays, but he's not a guy that I even want getting 20 touches a game because of his size. Like he's a guy where like if he can fall into that 12 to 15 range, like wheels up, there's production to be had. But I think generally he's overpriced in the dynasty market.
That's fair. There's definitely I'm not super confident that he's going to be able to hold like an actual workload. I just don't think he needs the actual workload
Exactly.
to be able to be a performer. But then it's like, how strong is his value to be able to stay afloat if he's not actually getting a lot of work? So there's definitely concerns there. Would you have taken London or HN? Which one?
I probably would have taken London personally.
Okay.
But
so Ryan, you made a good pick.
London was there. Yeah, I mean, my thing is the fact that Jonathan Taylor went at the 411, and then the previous one was McCaffrey at the 312. Just like basically a whole round of difference when those guys in reality don't have much difference in terms of value. I think that was because, like, realistically, I just wanted to get Tank Dell. Like, I would have taken JT if it wasn't just the fact that I didn't have him anywhere. So I'm like, I want Tank Dell here.
Right.
That was like the guy I was looking for. So it was more just like how you had mentioned, Jake. Like, I wanted to have a little bit of fun and get guys that I don't usually, because I don't have a lot of, like, my top 5 picks. I have very few shares of all of those guys. So it was just one of those things where I wanted to build a fun team. But I think that the value on Jonathan Taylor here was insane.
And even so, like even that being a really good value for Jonathan Taylor, like that doesn't mean you reach for Tank Dell. That doesn't mean you reach like you got guys that you liked and are going to have fun with, but you didn't have to reach for any of them, which is really like where people screw themselves in drafts. Is they're like, I love this guy. I'm going to draft him 7 spots over consensus. And it's like, you just took the quarterback 14 at quarterback 7 prices. Like, what are you doing?
To the moon.
That was like that Goff pick. That Goff pick in the 4th round really threw me for a loop.
I've never seen Goff go before the 7th round. And then he goes round 4. I was like, all right, things are going to get weird.
Yeah, all my startups this year, he's gone like round 5. And I'm just like, oh, I don't know. I'm a Lions fan, and I just couldn't do that. I guess he's been performing for fantasy, but like I don't know. The upside of the ceiling isn't there.
Yeah.
Jared Goof. All right, fast forward to my next pick. It was Bryce Young. I was really hoping to get Deshaun, but then Achane fell to me, so I didn't get a quarterback 2. And then after I had Hockenson in my queue, I had ETN as well, but I really didn't want to take a 3rd running back, so I was hoping Bryce Young would fall. Hockenson went to you, which probably was for the best because I needed another quarterback. So then I took Bryce Young.
And you got Kittle and Engram in the next 2 rounds.
Yeah, exactly. So if I would have taken another tight end, it would have just been like I wouldn't have been able to take Engram, and then my whole draft would be different, like how we talked about with yours. Like, maybe I don't go Kittle, maybe I go Tajay, maybe I go the rookie pick, and then like boom, whole draft changes up. But yeah, so I ended up going with Bryce Young. I'm still a believer. I'm really not. I don't know. Like he was the first overall pick. He was a great prospect. I'm not giving up on him after 1 year in what was a really, really gross situation for him. Hopefully year 2 is better.
I think it will be. Like I talked about this on an episode of the Digest, and I was like, look, I get being down on Bryce Young, but to drop him from he came into the league and was ranked as a top 12 quarterback, and then he drops to like most people's like in that 20 to 24 range.
Yeah.
Like I'll take a shot on 22-year-old Bryce Young versus like Will Levis gets ranked ahead of him. I'm like, no, please no.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah, that's enough.
I can't take Mayo Boy over him.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. Sorry. But yeah, I think you got great value on Bryce. I'm comfortable taking Bryce in like the 5th round. So I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, I didn't think he'd be there, to be honest. I thought that he would have gone maybe to like Armani since he didn't have a quarterback 2. Or maybe Swanky, same reason.
If I still had like if I never made that trade, I still had 5-5. Like if I didn't trade out of 105, I probably would have targeted Bryce at 5-8 or whatever that is.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, it was like a whole round later. That was a good pick. But then you got Hockenson, which is also really, really good value. I think we both ended up getting good value picks there.
And that's why I trade back every time that I can. There's just so much value to soak up in these ranges.
Yep. Yeah. And then I think Canales will be able to help him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done pretty good work the past couple of years with some quarterbacks that didn't have the best reputations going into it. So
he was the quarterback coach for Geno's revival. Yep. He was the quarterback or the offensive coordinator for Baker's. Let's make it 3 for 3. Come on, Dave.
Come on. Shoot a hattie. Get a little hat trick going. Then I kept building my tight end university. Maybe it was more of a community college. It wasn't, I don't have a lot of public funding. So we're going to go community college. And then I went George Kittle. I don't know what rookie pick went here. This is 7, 8, 9. Okay, so I took George Kittle over the 110. Maybe after the combine, that's probably not really a popular opinion because I feel like rookie picks are at their like near peak right now. So I guess people probably would take the 110 over it. But in the 0.75 tight end premium, I don't think Kittle's like he's not aging out. He's 30. He's got at least a couple more. Like you said earlier, we look in a couple year window. I think in the next couple of years, Kittle is going to be what he has been the past couple of years, where he's an upside tight end. Sometimes he has some weeks where he craps the bed, but when he explodes, he really explodes, and he's going to be a league winner for your week, or a week winner, I guess is the better term for it.
And I think a good way of looking at it too is it's like I know what George Kittle is, I know what he can be. 110, like yes, there's maybe some extra value to grab if you move it later on, but like, why am I taking a pick that I'm hoping the wide receiver I draft at 110 can match Kittle's production, and tight end, we're getting the 0.75 premium. So like just flat production, I hope that my wide receiver turns into Kittle, but I'm getting 0.75 more points for every ball that Kittle touches than that guy.
To make it even better, it was the 111. So a the win.
Extra W.
Yeah, there we go. Even better than the 110. Next up was Evan Ingram, and I was like, didn't really know what I was gonna do when this pick was like rolling around the turn. I had like Ty J in the queue. I had maybe Kelsey, Adams, Cup, and Joku as well. And then like the pick before, I was like, please be in Joku. But I knew, like, I felt like Dirty was on the clock for like 3 hours, and the entire time I was like, he's going to Joku. I was like, he's sniping me. Went in Joku, so I ended up taking Evan Ingram over the 201, which would have been the next rookie pick. Took him over Mayer as well. In this format, he scored like 19 points per game last year. Obviously, I don't expect him to like exactly replicate that performance, but he has shown the upside for it. And if he continues to be like a big, like just reception dog, like he continued to haul in a lot of receptions game after game. If he does that again, or at least somewhat similar to that, it'll be really good value, for, like production for the value.
Ingram with any quarterback that isn't Daniel Jones has never been worse than tight end 7 in point per game.
He's cooked.
Ingram's a stud.
Daniel Jones, bro.
That one,
So mad at that pick.
if I didn't draft Hawkinson, I would have taken Ingram at 8.5.
Yeah.
So
I just have a thing for tight ends, I guess. I was like stacking them.
Dude, I was so mad when you made that pick because I'm like, surely he won't take another tight end here. So Evan Ingram's lock for my pick, and I don't need to take Max Meyer, and then you freaking take him, and I'm just like, oh my god!
I
like,
took Michael Mayer.
I love Max Meyer. Don't get me wrong, but like, Evan
love
Ingram
him enough to know his name.
Grossly undervalued players. It was just
Michael Mayer, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd rather have Ingram than the combination of Goddard and Mayer. So I got left with
I love trolling you.
Not my favorite, but
Mayer
surprised you didn't go Watson.
I thought about Watson. I thought about Watson, Najee. I thought about Javonte, Ramondre, like Amari. I really pretty much thought about all the people that went in the turn besides Judy or Brian Robinson.
I'll gas you up. You made the right pick over every one of those players.
Yeah, I would do it again too. Like in this format, I think he's really good production for value. Like he's going to be at the very least someone that I'll be able to cash out on if I like decide to switch up my build. Like if I decide to go rebuild, or if I do want to get a wide receiver, he'll have a spike week and I'll be able to flip him for something.
Yeah, when that happens, call me.
Bet. I'll bang
Jacob
your
might
line.
have to hit you up for Geno Smith in this season if one of my quarterbacks go down because I have Aiden O'Connell as my third string.
Aiden O'Connell.
Hey, market's always open, baby.
If you thought the string of tight ends was bad, oh god. Next up, I went 6 rookie picks in a row. From the 906 to the 1407, I just kept taking rookie picks every single time because nobody else was taking them. Like literally nobody wanted them. I ended up with half of the second round. I have the 201, the 203, the 204, the 206, the 208, and the 210. So I have great compensation in the second round. As you'll notice in my build, I went Justin Jefferson and then nobody until DJ Chark in the 26th round. So with those picks, I'm hoping to get some wide receiver depth or trade them for wide receiver pieces like Hollywood, Jacoby, Ridley. Like just try to make some moves if I can on the clocks. Just players that I like. Would say Deontay, but I know you're not giving him up.
If one of those mid twos is there and Lad McConkey's still on the board.
Exactly. Yeah.
Again,
exactly.
Give me a call.
Exactly. Like Lad McConkey. Like I'm hoping that he'll be there. Like I'm hoping to shore up some wide receiver value in the second round, either through picks or trades. So that's kind of why I just took 6 of them. I'm sure at a certain point there was like a receiver I should have taken or a player I should have taken, but at a certain point I was just committed to the grind.
I have a hard time.
One of those.
Yeah, like maybe Mike Evans is a trade option for you. Calvin Ridley for one of the later ones. Like you have a lot of outs if you want them, but like worst case, like looking at a lot of those players that were drafted, even guys that I drafted, like looking back, I would prefer an early to mid second over a good chunk of them.
Yeah.
Like you got really good value on a lot of those picks.
Yeah, I just kept scooping it up. That was kind of the whole goal. And then I had to dabble back into the tight end pool. Like I couldn't just be done there. I couldn't be done with 3. I needed 4.
Yeah,
so
that one.
Noah Fant in the 15th.
That one hurt me.
That makes me feel better because I was getting cooked in another league when I took him in the 15th. They're like, round 15, Noah Fant. That's really early. And I was like, damn, I'm getting cooked right now.
That was
But
that was a really sharp dagger right to the heart.
I knew in that other league, Brian O'Leary's in it, and I knew for a fact Brian was not gonna let him make it back to me.
Yeah.
And then Brian was like, "Yeah, I would have taken him." He knew who I was, or he knew he wouldn't have been there, is what he said, or something like that.
Yep.
So I really like Noah Fant, athletic player, showing flashes. Finally gets to hit free agency. Tight ends take time to marinate. I'm in on Noah Fant. I've traded for him a bunch, and I think I've drafted him in all 3 of my startups this year since the season ended. So yeah, I'm really big on Noah Fant. Been banging that drum.
I still have Noah
What's your
Fant as a
rostership?
top 18 tight end. So
Oh god, I have no idea what my rostership is. It's probably in the 40s,
I was gonna
30s
say
at
it's probably.
least.
I was gonna guess like 50%, like close
I
to it.
I hold on, yeah. Jake, talk about why you like Noah Fant. I'll find out my rostership.
yeah, I mean, you said a lot of it. Like uber athletic player has a tight end 1 finish on his resume, which is more than you can say about pretty much every tight end who was taken after him at this point. And like people want to say like, oh, he got traded and then was a rotational piece. Like, look at Pete Carroll's history as a head coach, or even just like running any team that he's had a say in the offense. Like, they rotate their tight ends there like crazy.
Oh yeah,
Whereas
it was so annoying too.
if you put him on a team that's gonna give him an 85 to 90% snap share, like wheels up. Like we could
He's
see
good enough for it. He's good enough for
yeah,
it.
he's got the talent. He just got drafted by Denver and then got stuck going to Seattle. Like the 2 worst places, in my opinion, to be a tight end.
Yeah, it has not been even in Denver, he led the team in like targets. He was just at a certain year, like he had a really he showed flashes for a young athletic tight end, and I don't know, like at this cost, like I would trade Kate Otten for him. Done that twice actually. I'm gonna trade Dulcich for him, even though I like Dulcich. Like I just think his upside is really big, and I have a 35% rostership. I did the math. So yeah,
I'm only at 20%. You got me beat on Noah Fant.
Brian O'Leary probably has us combined beat.
Oh, 100%.
Every single like
I
half the
maybe
leagues
have
I
him
went to go trade
10.
for him in, he literally has him in, and I'm like, there's no way I'm getting every time. I just want to trade for him, and I can't.
It's a
'Cause
double-edged sword with having Brian in leagues.
if I give him
Because if he
fair
has a
value,
player,
he's
you're
not
not
gonna
getting
take
him.
it. I have to give him better than fair value because we both like the guy, you know?
Right.
Mhm.
Maybe I just don't like him that much if I won't overpay, I guess. But I'm not really an overpayer. All right, back to the rookie picks. I don't know what pick this was. This was a third, I think, like a late third, like the 308, 304. I lied. It was a 304. People probably love that Marvin Mims pick now, huh?
Eh.
Yeah.
I'm
Same
trying to
vibe.
sell Marvin Mims.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
100%.
would be too. Don't get me wrong, I like analytical profiles that look
I
good.
drafted a lot of them in rookie drafts. Good profile, young player, potential in the offense. What the fuck happened?
There's yeah. Well, Sean Payton's not a good head coach, but we
Like
can
even when he was on the field, he didn't really do much. So it's hard for me to buy into the he's automatically their wide receiver 2 or whatever.
yeah, and it's like also why do I care if even if Marvin Mims is their 1,
Cortland Sutton had 10 touchdowns last year and still was like
who's
not
the
good.
quarter like I don't want the wide receiver 1 for Jarrett Stidham.
Stidham.
I just don't. I don't it's one of those things where it's like being a wide receiver 1 on a team does matter to an extent. But even if you're the worst wide receiver 1 in football, you're wide receiver 32 in fantasy.
Yep.
Like I don't care.
You're Cortland Sutton last year. Like
Yeah.
it's just not great. And then here, like after that pick, after the Noah Fant pick, is kind of where we got into like the just taking stabs, hoping upside hits. Took Antonio Gibson. Like he's proven like good target earner. He's hitting free agency. Hopefully he goes somewhere and is able to play a role there as a receiving back. And maybe I mean, he's fine on the ground, but I like the fact that he's able to learn targets, especially in PPR leagues, to where you just cheese points. So at round 17, I'll take that. And then 4 of my next 5 of my next 7 picks were all quarterbacks. Took Tannehill, Garoppolo, Mac Jones. Mac Jones just got traded to the Jaguars. Browning and Winston. All of them I took with the same theory of this guy will be a backup, most likely. Could start somewhere. When he starts, it'll be a value uptick. You just kind of take that in Superflex leagues.
Oh, see, now I see why you want Jameson Winston to be on the Vikings, because you'll then have that nice little stack going for you.
Hey, yep, I'm a visionary. Air that thing out. But yeah, like I assume you guys are down with the quarterback, like trying to get value.
Yeah, I mean, people are always buying quarterbacks, even if they don't need them. Like, if I could not need a quarterback, but if Carson Wentz gets signed as the backup to anybody, I can go get a third round pick for him.
Carson Wentz too.
Yeah, that's why I use him as an example. But even
Yeah.
then, like Mariota, rushing quarterback historically, is backing up a rushing quarterback. If something happens there, it's a good scheme fit. You get upside. Mitch Trubisky, now he's in Buffalo. I like Buffalo's offense for him more than Pittsburgh, but that's also because Pittsburgh is atrocious.
Stinky, man.
Brissett might still be one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the world right now.
Dude, he needs get him on the field.
Like, could start a lot of places. Jameis Winston could start for a lot of teams. Like, it's, and no offense, but like, I'll even just use the two guys that you drafted. Damian Harris, probably never going to be a marquee piece.
Oh yeah,
never going to receive value again. You're hoping that like
I'm hoping
forced to start him 1 week and he falls into the end zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or same thing with Penny. Whereas like quarterback in Superflex is always going to have value.
Exactly.
Even if you just end up flipping half of those guys for 4th round picks.
Yeah, even if I hold on to them and they turn into like nothing happens, it's still like better upside than holding on to a Damian Harris, Rashad Penny,
or Jalen Tolbert, Juwan Jennings, Jake Bobo,
Greg Dortch. Like like it's just I prefer to have the actual like feasible upside of a quarterback like getting a starting position for at least a little bit.
Yeah,
and then there being a sure value uptick.
It's something all of us did. Like in the later rounds, Ryan did it with Rudolph, Flacco, and Gabbert. You did it with 19 people. I did it with Heineke, White, and Hall. Like at the end of the draft, like you're not making a difference maker. So just grab a guy who could see a spike in value. Like no offense, but like Foster Moreau, good dude, fun to listen to when he's on podcasts. Never going to be a difference making tight end. I'm never going to get more than maybe a third out of him. But Taylor Heineke, if Kirk Cousins goes there, pops his Achilles again, and Heineke's the backup, I know that somebody knows they're getting 8 games worth of Taylor Heineke starting in the NFL.
Someone probably pay a second for that.
Exactly. Even if it's a late second, it's a second.
It's still a second.
It's more value than I'm
because even like after the season's over, in startups that 2-12 will be going 10 rounds before where Heineke would be going, or maybe 5 rounds at the very best. Like the value would still be way heavier on your side.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're just trying to gain value. A lot of people like just hate like picks and stuff because they don't like rookies or for some reason. But like it's the most surefire way to build value, and we're playing a game here where value is very important, so you can actually build a squad that stays afloat for longer than a year. It's easy to build a team that's really good for 1 year.
Yeah.
It's harder to build a team that's good for 3.
And don't get me wrong, I understand not liking rookies, but there's nothing in the rule book that says I have to make the pick.
Exactly.
I can go get somebody that I prefer to that pick, or the player I would take at that pick for that pick.
Exactly.
It's simple, basic economics, people.
Yeah, I like this draft though. I finished the draft. I felt pretty good. Didn't really like the fact that my wide receiver 2 is DJ Chark, but there's a lot of potential for me to fix that.
Yeah.
A lot of like areas for me to be able to avenues for me to be able to take to actually get that like upgraded. I like the RB value. I like the 2 quarterbacks I got. Obviously, I only have 1 that I'm actually confident in. But after that, I don't have a quarterback 3 that I'm confident in like at all. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I built my team to like have value for the foreseeable future. That's how I like to play it. Not necessarily trying to win year 1, not really trying to tank. I'm just gonna see how it goes into the season, and then that's kind of how I always play it with a lot of my teams. Is I will pivot and I make a lot of trades, so I go for value a lot of the time.
It's the way to do it.
I think from a value standpoint, that's kind of what makes your team like drafted well. Like if you didn't get those picks, I wouldn't like your team as much as like
I wouldn't either. Yeah, I was really happy to land all those seconds because that gives me a lot of upside, like for trades or just for picking. At least some of those got to hit.
You're probably you're the most flexible team.
Yeah, I go either way.
Which has a lot of value in and of itself. Like, you're not tied to anything.
We'll see what I end up doing. What would you guys grade that one?
I think that from a value standpoint, I think I'd give it a B+ because of the flexibility.
I was gonna go A-, but B+, A-, kind of right in that range.
I would give it an A- if you had a better wide receiver too. That'd probably be the way I'd view it.
Yeah.
So if I didn't do the trade and I took Waddle, would that be a better team? Or if I would have taken, I definitely wouldn't have taken any of these wide receivers. Maybe I would have taken Christian Watson over Ingram or like Amari.
I said it before. I prefer both of the tight ends to the wide receivers.
Same, yeah. Like
around them. Like,
I don't know. I guess it just depends on what I do with these seconds. That's really where it comes down to.
And it's 0.75 tight end premium. Like, those guys, like Evan Ingram, if he scores, even say he regresses a little bit and it's 17 points per game, it's probably more than you're getting out of Waddle.
Yeah, I'll happily
probably more than you're getting out of DBS or Higgins or like.
And in season, that'll make his value spike.
Exactly.
Right now, people don't like older players. It's just the way of the road. It's just how the cycle works. All right, enough about
I would say there wouldn't be a pick that I would change from your perspective. It's just a matter of like if you were able to draft basically the same team with an extra wide receiver too, that's good. Then that would probably make it a lot better.
And if you go flip your first, second for, I don't know,
Keenan, like I could have got Deontay over the 201 or like Ridley.
And if you took Deontay, I would have taken the 201.
Exactly, so. Yeah. I felt like the value, like I like Deontay, but I feel like his value is not there, so I just went with 201. But I probably should have gone Deontay because that would have given me that actual like upside wide receiver 2 with like target earning potential that we know about. I like target earners.
But you have a ton of picks in a deep wide receiver class.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Even if you draft 6 wide receivers with all 6 of those picks, like
a couple of them got a hit.
Even if one hits, like you have a nasty starting lineup week to week.
A couple of them got it, yeah, hopefully. All right, enough about me, Ryan. What do you got cooking up over here from the 110?
I will say this before we start, before you even start talking. You have my favorite team in the league.
Really?
Yes.
Bangers. Bro built a wide receiver fucking federation over here.
I did the opposite of what you do, Jake. I go into the draft, and Boyd knows this. I go into the draft always drafting like this, where I go wide receiver heavy and quarterback heavy to start, and then I get running backs later. With the exception of like a running back falling. Like if I didn't take Tank Dell there, I would have taken Jonathan Taylor, no problem, or Achon at the turn if Drake London wasn't there. So that was just kind of dependent on who was still on the board. But
right.
I felt that like what made my team, I guess, successful in terms of the build was the later half with the running backs that I ended up being able to get. But we'll get to that in a second. So we had this discussion of what to get at the beginning in terms of the quarterbacks. And I thought that Joe Burrow, it was in terms of like overarching things, I felt that he was the most safe pick for me at that point. And I feel that regardless of if you want, like if you prefer Burrow or Kyler, you can't really go wrong with either. So I just went with the guy that I was more confident with. And then I know like we were talking about how we don't want, and then my next pick was Puka. So this is my only startup that I'm doing this offseason. So I wasn't really well rehearsed in ADP, and I didn't want to reach on Puka here. And I was so torn as like, should I take the 102 or Puka? And then the way I kind of viewed it was like Marvin Harrison's ceiling for his rookie season is like not even what Puka just did. So the way I kind of viewed it is just like Puka has to be a top 6 at the very minimum dynasty wide receiver. And I have very little of him. It's a fun pick. He's super young. Like Cooper Kupp obviously is, over 30 now at this point. So he's, likely going to be out in a couple of years. I mean, even when we look at that 2 to 3 year window. So I felt like I couldn't go wrong with Puka there. I don't know. I know, Jake, that you were like, I don't see anything wrong with Puka being wide receiver 5, but I don't know if you guys would prefer like AJ Brown or like maybe Kyler or the other picks. I want to get your thoughts on that.
I was wanting Puka to fall to me, but I was hoping I have Kyler above him. But with how your build is, I understand taking Puka over him instead because it's a 3 wide receiver league. I was expecting Puka to be my pick. Like if Kyler wasn't there, Lawrence wasn't there. Like after the Lawrence pick, I was like, okay, no way Kyler makes it to me. I'm gonna go with Puka, maybe the rookie pick, and then it ended up being Kyler.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you took Puka in the right spot. He should be going as wide receiver 5. Like that argument you make about the 102, like I could have Puka, or I could have the 102, which could even be Puka.
It could be Puka.
Like, you already have a stud wide receiver. Why take the risk on a guy that you're hoping is as good as the guy you could draft? I would have taken Puka there. I wanted to take Puka in round 2. I just didn't get the chance to, obviously.
Yeah, your team would look a lot different if you had taken Puka there.
One whole pick changes the entire board. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, I was so mad though. Like, just kind of a caveat, because the people that I wanted was Chase, Amon-Ra, or Justin. Well, the 101. Those were the ones that I wanted, and they obviously all got picked right before me. So I was really at a tough spot because I didn't know who to pick at that point. Because it was kind of that. Is Puka like a teardrop? Is he a tier lower? Is he a tier higher? Like, I don't really. I at this stage, like now, I'm more confident saying that he was in that right tier. But at that point, like when we drafted basically over a month and a half ago, I think is when we started this. Like I wasn't too sure. And honestly, with that being said, this board would look a hell of a lot different if we did this post combine with how like everyone did. Like Boyd, you would not be able to get all those second round picks that late.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nope. You would not.
Like, and then obviously we had the Godwin signing, so I may have not picked him where I did, but still, I'll get to that.
Oh, yeah, the Evans signing, yeah.
Yeah, because I was kind of hoping that Godwin's still good, but I was kind of hoping that he would be the wide receiver one.
Yeah.
So then obviously with the third round reversal, I ended up getting Tua, which in my mind, him and Purdy were the last two of that QB1 tier that I was confident with. I didn't want to get Fields just because I was not really certain on Fields, and I'm not really like, I'm holding him everywhere I have him, but I'm not really looking to get him anywhere unless I can get him at a pretty decent discount. And I feel that I wasn't getting him at a discount, so I just kind of took Tua. I don't have him anywhere. So he was kind of a diversification pick, unsexy. I wasn't very happy, but I'm just like,
unsexy is a good way to put it.
Yeah, like there's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing like that really makes me excited for it. But I can't go wrong because he's my QB2, and he can easily be another QB1 on my squad. So
yeah, it's a very
more of a
vanilla
value
pick, but
play.
like,
Yeah,
it's
Vanilla's
the right
a classic. Vanilla's a classic.
I mean, the rest of my draft was a little less vanilla. So moving on to my fourth round pick, we have Mr. Nathaniel Tank Dell at the 410 here. And just to kind of recap what Boyd was saying, so I wanted to move up to either be in the range of getting Tank Dell or London, because I had a feeling that Pitts, Waddle, and Smith were actually going to fall before them. Like I felt that they were going to get pushed back, and those two would get picked ahead. But then once I saw the way the board was falling, I'm just like, one of them is going to be here, so I don't need to make the trade anymore. And I know I had said it when we were at the end of the third round, and then I'm like, wait, you know what? I'm going to wait before I pull the trigger on this, and I'm kind of happy that I held off on that.
Yeah, it was like mid third. I was like, nah, I want to see who's on the board. Should have just taken it. But I still would have. I literally still would have worked out the exact same way. I still would have got a second. I would have gave a third, and I would have taken JT. So
right,
I ended up happy.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little upset though that what's it called, that Jonathan Taylor, or not, excuse me, that Kyron didn't make it, because I was debating on taking him at my next pick, just because I wanted to get another, like I just wanted to start that running back. But then because London was still there and I was trying to target him before, I think he's going to take a step. I've been a big London believer ever since he was in the draft class. I've never given up on him, and nothing suggests that he didn't do what I think he did. He just didn't have the quarterback play or the coaching, but he had the targets. Like that's what we target. We target guys that get the targets, and he's had a 30% plus target share, which is obscene. And I think that if he gets a better quarterback, even better than Ritter, and a better play call, like that's a little bit more pass happy, I think that a 1,200-yard season is well within his range of outcomes for
I refuse to give
the
up.
foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's when guys earn targets, like so many people like to make excuses like, oh, he's the only option, blah, blah. Like there's always an excuse. And it's like, guys, we've seen it forever. Guys earn targets until they don't. Like Tyler Boyd was a good target earner until T. Higgins shows up, until Jamar Chase shows up. Like, and even then, he's still earning better targets than over half of the wide receivers in the league.
Yeah, for like a wide receiver 3, he earns a pretty good amount of targets.
Yeah, like guys who are good may simply just be good.
Crazy concept how that works.
It's wild.
Drake London is talented, so I like to pick.
For sure. And then, just why not get another wide receiver on the next 2 picks? At the 6'10", I ended up getting George Pickens. Now, I obviously haven't really been following Pittsburgh in the offseason, but now that you say that Deontay is potentially looking to, leave Pittsburgh, that would definitely play well in terms of Pickens' stock. I know that he's not a super high, like he gets, maybe low 20s around that 20 mark. So he doesn't get like, the volume that Deontay would. But obviously with Deontay leaving, he could get a slight bump, even if they do bring somebody else in. Better quarterback play. And he is a talented receiver. It's just he's not like that heavy volume guy. But he can have those monster weeks like he did that one week where he put up like 40 fantasy points. Like he's got that upside. How many points was it?
Let's find it. He had
It was
35.
35, that was it.
Yeah.
So 5.5.
Yeah, like he can win you a week. And as my wide receiver 4, he's young. Like
yeah, Pickens is young. Pickens is younger than I am.
Yeah,
if 3 days after me.
Me too. Like if I had him as my wide receiver 2 or 3, I would be a little less happy. But the fact that he's my wide receiver 4 and he can win me a week like that, I feel that that's plenty value. And I don't think that he will lose a whole lot of value unless like, he goes off the rails like Antonio Brown and, just completely his attitude just gets him out of the league. But that's a very, very what if statement there.
It'd be less than ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you can take the shot on the low target earner with upside when you have 3 dudes who've shown that they're legit target earners.
Right.
Like you can take those swings when you have those volume safety nets.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really thinking that far in depth. It was just more, but I guess that definitely makes a lot of sense. It's just, I look, so when I draft like wide receivers like this, I just go for the guy who I think is the best on the board.
Yeah.
Like who do I think could like, have that wide receiver 1 upside in any given week? And that's segue here, kind of why I went with Chris Godwin. Like Chris Godwin is another target earner. However, his targets this past year, and more specifically his touchdowns this last year, are the reason why he wasn't as successful in fantasy. And I think that with Baker just signing that 3-year deal, which was a monster contract, by the way, I was not expecting it to be that large, but honestly, good for him for turning his career around.
I predicted it pretty close to the money.
What did you say? It was like 3-year, 90 mil or something?
Yeah, I said 3 and then 30 a pop, and it comes out to 33 a pop.
Right.
Sheesh,
yeah, I mean,
got paid.
That's a hefty penny. But I mean, when you have a guy that could, be for fantasy purposes, a QB1, like you're gonna re-sign him in the NFL. Like he clearly he literally got them into the playoffs. Like without him, and he looked good in the playoffs. Like in that matchup against the Lions, like he proved that he was meant to be there. Obviously, they didn't ultimately end up winning the game, but he played very well. And with that being said, like he's a like they passed. I think they were like in the middle tier in terms of passing rate this year. I don't have those numbers on hand, but like Godwin obviously still had over 100 targets. And as a wide receiver too, like that's phenomenal. And he's only 27. Oh, he's 28 now, but he, in the 7th round, you can't really go wrong with a guy that has a proven track record of just, being a target hog, like 3 straight seasons of over 150 targets. And I can't see if that's 120.
120
for that. 42, 128.
But still, it's 3 straight seasons of 120 plus targets, 3 straight seasons of over 1,000 receiving yards, 3 straight years of over 80 receptions. Like
it's with an ACL tear toss in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like dude's just good.
He's just good at football.
Boyd knows this. I love Chris Godwin. I drafted him the year he broke out in redraft and he won me a league. Like he has like that special place in my heart. And I will forever love that Jameis Winston season that made Godwin into a beast, and then he just continued to be a beast.
Glorious.
So, yeah, that was my wide receiver 5. So, I had to stop that run eventually. And
the opposite
my
of
next pick was probably my least favorite pick I've made so far. I wouldn't particularly say it was necessarily a reach, but I do think that Mayer isn't yet proven. I was big on him as a prospect. I still think he's gonna have a similar ascension as like Trey McBride did. Maybe not to the not to the same level, but
Mhm.
that's what I'm hoping for and why I picked him where I did. Obviously, if Boyd didn't go Engram, I would have easily picked Engram, no problem. Like I would have literally saw I was on the clock with 8 hour time and
Not
like
bad.
10 seconds. Okay, got it, Evan Engram. Move on to my next pick. But because I'm building a team right here where if it's not competitive, my most valuable assets are not the ones that I need to get rid of. It's just, I have tight ends, or excuse me, I had like if I got Evan Ingram, I could have got rid of him. But now I have like, a tight end that's young who may not produce. So if I want to be competitive, I need to go out and get a better producing tight end, which I'll get to in a second once I go over Ramondre Stevenson, who was my next pick. And Jake, we mentioned this when we were doing our analysis. Ramondre Stevenson at this point was the first Patriot off the board in the startup, which is
And it's
actually
just
disgusting.
it's disgusting how bad that team is, but like that's such good value on Ramondre. Like that right there.
I
Like
was so surprised.
I loved your team before that, but that like made me fall in love
As
with
the
your team.
RB1, yeah.
Yeah, like when that's your RB1 that you're getting
Round
that
9.
in round 9, and then you just followed that pick up with a bunch of like the next 5, like starting with that pick, like your 5 picks after Mayer were just disgustingly great value. Like
Yeah, I love it.
you have the scariest team in this league to me by far, simply from your first like 13 rounds. Like you don't have a weak point.
See, I'm
Attacking it
gonna
from
have
all
to say
angles.
that just because like I'm not very like I'm confident, but at the same time I'm always super hard on the way I draft and how I do like trades and stuff.
Yeah.
And I would put like I like to like look at to see like who has the best team like from value standpoints like all those various calculators you can find out there, and it was always ranking me in like the bottom 5, and I'm just like, well, I don't feel great now. But I think part of that is just because I didn't have a lot of picks. Like I think for my like team's construction I love it, but I don't have like some great picks, which I think would make it a little bit
Which are
more
the hot
valuable and a little
commodity
more
right now, yeah.
flexible. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's the weak point with those calculators is it overvalues rookie picks like crazy. Like it's nice to have that flexibility, but also sometimes you just have a really good team,
Hmm.
and that's valuable too.
Right, and it's not like my team is old either, so, like, if I needed to pivot at any point, like, I have the flexibility of youth, and even the guys that are older, they're still gonna be guys that I can move at some point during the season, like my next 2 running backs, which I'll get to, because, like, the 2 running backs I took in Stevenson and Henry, they have RB1 upside, like, easy. Like,
So
they're
does
probably gonna go in the first 3,
James
4
Conner.
rounds of redraft.
So does
So,
James Conner.
I love
yeah, see,
James
like, I don't
Conner.
know about James Conner, but like, he's there, he's close, but so just to
Love
kind
James
of
Conner.
recap for those that are listening and not watching, I made 2 picks in the 9th rounds. So we're moving on from Ramondre here. I moved up from the 11, I think it
3.
was the 11-3. Yeah,
Yeah.
I moved up from the 11-3, and I gave up like a 20th, like my 20th round pick or whatever. And then I gave up my future second to move up 2 rounds to the 909 because as we discussed before, I'm not fully convinced that Mayer may be like a like a bang on producer going forward, and
Mhm.
he may have like a second half breakout, but that's besides the point. I wanted a guy that I was very confident in,
Yeah.
and at this point, it was either Dallas Goddard or Cole Kmet, and I had more conviction that Goddard would at least be that interim tight end until I could figure out that position. I feel that at least for 2 seasons, he
He'll
could
fill a
be a
gap,
solid
yeah.
10 points per game. Like he did, we actually had gone over this in the analysis. He only had 2 games all year last year where he scored less than 10 points in our scoring format. So getting that in the 9th round and not really giving up a whole lot. Like realistically, that was Aaron Rodgers in a second for Dallas Goddard and Rico Dowdle and then a third. So like I wasn't really stressing too much about giving up my
Yeah.
second there.
You're fine. You like you said, like you made a good pick there. And if the only reason Goddard didn't perform to his previous levels last year was just because of the offensive coordinator change and just like the entire, they're like the middle of the field doesn't exist, which is where Goddard
Mhm.
does his best work. And even then, he was still tight end 12 in points per game. Like
Right.
that's still a startable tight end every single week.
And then Boyd made a good point that he does have like a history of injuries where he won't play a full season. Like they're not like long-term injuries, but he'll miss at like 4 or 5 games in the season, which is fine because I have
Yeah, but that
other
always
fill-ins.
happens.
Yeah, exactly. I have other
People are
fill-ins like
always
Mayer could
hurt.
fill in for a week, and then obviously we'll get later my conviction on Jawan Johnson, who's probably my favorite pick of the draft. So moving on to my next pick in the 10th round, I think that D-Hop is too undervalued. I think that
Yeah.
if anybody is competing, they need to go out and buy him because I think he could have a better season than he did this past year because he looked the same. Like he did not look that bad. He just had shaky quarterback play because obviously Will Levis is a very raw prospect. That's his whole
It's a way to
his
put
whole
it.
issues. Yeah, his whole issues were accuracy, but that is probably the one thing that can be improved from a season to season standpoint from like a rookie to a sophomore or junior, so on and so forth, because that's usually what you'll see guys improve on going forward because he's got the arm. And Hopkins had, I think, how many targets did he have? He got close to 120,
That's
130,
the
no?
wrong play.
133.
He's
Yeah,
got it.
he had an absurd amount of targets, and he had an 1,000-yard season. And like he played a full
Another one.
year. Like I don't see any reason why D Hop is not like going to be at least for like a season or two the produce like at least a wide receiver two, like with wide receiver one upside on like a weekly basis, and he's my sixth wide receiver, and he's on my flex spot, like my third flex spot. So I literally have a full starting lineup outside of my RB2 at this point, and I couldn't be happier because I have all the youth prior. So like if Hopkins doesn't end up panning out, oh well, on to the next one. I don't really have to worry about it because it's not like he's my wide receiver 3 or 2. So
Great value. Hopkins is a really good
yeah.
value.
Yeah.
And then obviously I didn't have my 11th round pick, but kind of looking and seeing who was in the 11th round, I wouldn't have wanted to take anybody there. Like I'm like maybe Aaron Rodgers potentially, but like Schultz, Musgrave, Mixon, David Montgomery, like I would have definitely taken the 2-0. What was that at that point? The 204. Yeah, I would have most certainly taken the 204 at that point.
It was a 4.
But obviously that's hindsight 2020. But if there was a pick to give up, it was that 11th round pick. Like I wasn't going to give up a 10th round pick at that point. I feel like that would have been too much on top of a second. And then we move on to my 12th round pick here, and I get Derrick Henry. And this is what makes like Derrick Henry, and then following that up with in the 13th round, we had James Conner. So I think that here we have
1-2
guys
punch.
that may only have maybe one season or two potentially of RB1 upside. I think that Henry's definitely much more of a lock than James Conner, and then obviously we have the injury history with James Conner, but we don't want to predict injuries. And at the 12th and 13th round, if I can get guys that have top 12 RB upside like for next season, this team could easily be a front runner for the title next year. And if it isn't, I can move them. That was the whole like thinking. Like I don't want to take Chase Brown here because Chase Brown, I'm banking on him, being the starter, Mixon leaving, he becoming the a workhorse. Whereas like these guys are guaranteed workloads. Like regardless of where Henry goes, he's going to get a workload somewhere. So I wanted that guaranteed production here with the potential to be able to move them for maybe like a mid second next year, or even like an early second, depending on how well Henry does. Because I know I'm probably not going to get that for James Conner, but that's besides the point. I feel that even though like Boyd had the flexibility with the picks, I have the flexibility with my vets, and I think that was my biggest edge at these last few picks.
Your core players are so young and have been good, and even if they don't like hit their pure ceiling, like all you really have to retool year to year is your running back room.
Right, which is and then with the next class, I feel like that's going to be pretty easy to do.
Exactly. Like you have so much flexibility, so much upside with your wide receivers that like even just having like a high floor at running back is phenomenal. Like you have probably no worse than 12 points per game out of each of your running back spots, which when you consider the point per game upside of your quarterbacks and your wide receivers and your tight ends, like you have so much freedom.
Yep, I just got to hope that I don't have an injury to one of my starting quarterbacks because that would definitely be a little brutal.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that one. So moving on to my next two picks, I basically for the 14th and 15th round, I took the 211 and the 212. And I think from the way like the standpoint of the draft, like those could easily be like, running backs. Like if they because I feel that running backs are going to still within at least in this league go to the middle to the back end of the second. So
Yeah.
if there's one of those ambiguous situation running backs that could hit, I am willing to take a shot, like maybe like just do two running backs back to back picks because if one of them hits, then I have my problem solved for contingency at that position. If I don't like who's on the board, I could easily just move off of them for like a future second and like some really back end production running back. Like, at that point, Gus Edwards resigns with the Ravens. I could do like a future second and Gus Edwards. Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of just spitballing here, but there's a lot of flexibility with this, and it seemed to fit with my team builds. Like, I didn't really need any other positions at that point. I have my core, and this just kind of gave me that. Okay, I can infuse some youth here. I haven't gotten a pick at this point, but from what my team needs and where those picks are in the draft, like it kind of it's in line. Or I could, hope that Bell or Jatavion Sanders somehow makes it to that point, and then I can get one of them too, and have another option at tight ends.
Yeah, you have a ton of flexibility. Like we have through JWB, we do a bunch of like pre-combine mocks, and we track the ADP for them. But like you're in the range with those picks of like Bucky Irving, Will Shipley, Audric Estem, Marshawn Lloyd, Ray Davis. Like you have running backs you can pick there, or like you said with the tight ends, like tight ends not popular, but you have your like Cade Stover would be a little bit of a reach, but like Sanders, you just have flexibility. Like, and that's the nice thing about the second round picks in this class is like, yeah, we don't love this running back class, but like they're still gonna have jobs in the NFL. Like,
Yeah, like you could end up with like just look at last year if you would have gone at the end of the second or like early third, you could have got Tyjae Spears and Tank Bigsby. One completely is done value wise, one stored in value. Like, you never know until you take a shot. Like the shots might land, and with the late
Mhm.
twos, you never know they could hit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what's going to happen with the draft, and I hope that there's plenty of running backs that go within that round 3 and 4 range. Because if like they all get drafted in like 5, 6, or 7, it's going to completely change my mind on a lot of them. So
Yeah, that would not be
we'll,
good.
yeah, we'll see. But with that being said, there still is the depth of the wide receivers and tight ends. So if it comes to that, I could either move off the pick or just draft one of those guys and then just move on. Like it's not gonna make me upset if I don't end up getting a running back there. But that was just
Yeah,
like why I made the picks when I
yeah,
did
gives
because
you great flexibility.
that was the initial plan. But there's obviously contingency plans with it. So kind of moving on from that, we got Aiden O'Connell at pick 16. Unless the Raiders somehow get like, JJ McCarthy in the draft, I don't foresee them not having a better quarterback than Aiden O'Connell going into the season. I know he'll probably be the 32nd best starting quarterback in the NFL. However, he
I don't
is
know if Jaron
like,
Hall's starting. He may be 31.
yeah, he may be
Jaron
31,
Hall, the
but
GOAT.
like he did have some decent stretches of performances, but he did not look like all that great. He obviously had the fumbling issue. He didn't have a great pocket awareness. So at round 16, if I can get a starting quarterback, it is what it is. Like that's the one I think weak point of my team is the fact that I don't have
Value
a third
swing.
quarterback.
Yeah.
So that's
You and me both,
that's another
brother.
thing
You
too.
and me both.
I could also go with like if like Penix gets drafted in like the second round and he falls, then I could potentially get him. Who knows? But
Yeah,
that's just kind
you
of
could
the
take your two, like you could see like 2-6 on the clock. Penix or Nix is still there. You can take your 211 and 212 and offer it up and get
Mhm.
yourself a quarterback that way. Like
Right.
again, just your team is so flexible in that aspect.
Yeah, and then I don't really have to do a whole lot in terms of like, you know, I don't have to claw my way up like and retool if it all goes downhill because because obviously wide receivers get injured less than running backs, so like I don't really have to worry about them even if they do get injured that they're not going to be useful going forward. So I know my light just went out. That's because I'm looking at the sleeper screen right now, but I kind of want to highlight. So I did end up getting like the 306 for the next pick. That's just kind of like at that point that was what seemed best. So I don't really have much to comment on that. But my
Another
next pick is
upside
Juwan
swing.
Johnson. I got a little bit of something to say about Juwan Johnson. He last year he was my sleeper pick in like the back ends of startups, and the beginning of the year was garbage. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It was horrible.
Not
Like
ideal.
like in our scoring format with the 0.75 premium, he had 9, 4.8, 4.7, and then 0. And then he missed 3 straight weeks. Then he came back week 8, had 2.5. But then from week 9 on, he averaged 12.1 points per game in our scoring format, which it was better than what Dallas Goedert actually ended up averaging over the course of his season. So I don't think that there's going to be much additions in terms of targets. Like they're going to add anyone that's going to really take away targets from Juwan Johnson. He's 27. Carr's still going to be there. Like there's not much that's changing from this season to next season outside of potentially what happens to Kamara that would impact Juwan Johnson. So I think that he did have a great end to like the 2022 season and last season. I think that if I wanted to get a third tight end on my roster, like the upside is there. He's athletic. He can catch. His wife makes TikToks about how rich her husband is. Like, there's a lot to like about the guy, and I want that on my team. And especially in the 18th
That
round,
wife
like,
be flexing.
yeah, if I
Facts.
can get a guy in the 18th round that I have like no like I would have comfortability starting at any given week, I see that as a win. Like if God forbid a bunch of guys get injured, I'll pop them in my flex, call it a day. Like I won't be that upset about that.
Right.
So that's all I have to say about my boy Juwan Johnson. But I think that was probably one of my favorite picks in the draft because I wanted to get him and Dennis Allen as my two tight ends, and when I was devastated that I could only get one of those because I was convinced that I was able to get both.
Nah, I had to steal him from you.
Dude, his ADP was like I think like 400 or something. I had him in my queue. I was gonna pick him like that round that you did. I saw him picked, and I'm just like, or excuse me, Davis Allen, and I was just like, there's no way, dude. Like, there's absolutely no way somebody just picked him.
Hey, I saw it. I just took the shot. Again, I was having fun. I was like, it's not Tyler Higbee, which means I like him.
Right.
Bro, it's got to be nice knowing you sniped somebody in the 20th round.
Hey, I'll take it.
I didn't want to say anything in chat because
Those
I
are
would
the
have sounded like a
personal
complete
snipes.
degenerate. So
Those are the personal snipes.
yeah. And then my next 3 picks here were basically like, the back, like these were the last picks that I had that weren't just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to just make a random pick here. Like these were all purposefully made. I had a huge queue of like just running backs that I think are going to be either number 2s or number 3s on depth charts that could easily have weeks of relevance.
Yep.
Like unless their teams add anything, of course, during the draft. Chris Rodriguez is the number 2 in Washington, and Amari DiMercado is the number 2 in Arizona. And obviously, in redraft, we don't like to handcuff our own running backs, but with James Conner's injury history, if I can get his backup in the 20th round, I'm going to do it. Like, it doesn't make sense not to at that point because it's like, who else am I going to get? Like, I don't want Quadzilla. I'm done. Do you want to hear a horror story? I picked up Puka Nacua preseason, and I traded him for A.J. Dillon before the season started.
Oof.
And yeah, that tough scene right there. But moving on from that, Chris Rodriguez, I think, is one of those guys where I wouldn't mind picking him up for like 4ths, and like if I can send a 4th for Chris Rodriguez in every league, I would do that. Like regardless if I'm competing or not, because Antonio Gibson is not going to be there anymore, so he's the locked in number 2. Brian Robinson is not the best pass catching back. And if his workload goes up and increases, well, his hands are made of stone. We'll put it that way. And Chris Rodriguez has the ability of receiving. I don't know how his pass blocking ability is, so take that with a grain of salt. But regardless, like if Brian Robinson's workload is huge again, that runs the risk of him potentially getting injured and Chris Rodriguez, stepping up. Like, obviously, when we handcuff running backs, we just look for the number 2s with a guy that's above them that has a huge workload. Those are the guys you want to target. That was just the main thing. There wasn't a whole lot that went behind it. It's not like he's like, a darling of mine, but it's just a matter of that was my thought process.
I respect it. I think Chris Rodriguez is a pile of hot ass, but I respect it. The logic is fully there. I don't think the talent is, but I get it. Like I don't care how talented or untalented a guy is. If the NFL is going to give him a job, and like you said, if Brian Robinson gets hurt, there's no other running back there. Chris Rodriguez is the starter. You took him in the
upside.
What, 19th round, 20th round? Like,
yeah,
you get to go flip him for a late second or third, and you win.
Yeah. Well, that's like what we were saying before. Like at this point in the draft, after you get past 18 or 19, like it's just dart throws of guys that could have like a spike like week or two, or maybe, partial part of the season. And then you call it a day. You potentially can move off them. If you can't, then you ride the production for whatever it's worth, and then you move on. That was like kind of my thinking with Jeff Wilson, because
RB life.
Yep.
If he's still in Miami, is he still contracted, or is he a free agent?
That's a great question.
That I'm not.
I don't know the details of Jeffrey Wilson's contract.
Either way, I think that Jeff Wilson could potentially be like a useful running back. Like he's not particularly old. He's still got the skill set of being that uber athletic running back. And even if he is the RB3 in Miami again, Achane and Mostert have always been health concerns. Obviously we've only had one season of Achane, but he had persistent injuries that would pop up. So with the offense they run and how well running backs fit in, Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert function together in San Francisco. Like if he ends up, having a week or two of being the starting running back in Miami, that could win me a week for all we know. Or it can win somebody else a week when I move him. That was just why
when I move him, I love it.
Him.
He got flipped for seconds once Achane got hurt. I saw it in a ton of leagues.
It's just one of those things where if I see the potential to move off of him, I will.
Yeah.
That's just kind of who I was drafting at this point. And then I just drafted a bunch of fourths. That was just kind of I'll take some dart throws, hit on the Tank Dell, or whatever. One can only hope.
It could be a Tank Dell, it could be a Puka, it could be a
Zach
Andre Yoshevitz, a Zach Evans. It doesn't matter.
Know who that is.
You get chances. That's what matters.
The fact that I know who that is.
It's just absurd. And then I went with Mason Rudolph and Blaine Gabbert. And
I'll scroll down.
Oh no, there was more after that. I thought, at this point, outside of Jerick McKinnon, all these were just kind of dart throws. I'm okay, name
Joe
value.
Flacco,
name value.
the 2023 hero.
Yep. Actually, Durham Smythe, I kind of like. I think that he could potentially be somewhat useful.
A villain name.
Until the Jonnu signing, I liked Durham Smythe.
Durham Smythe sounds like a bad
Now I'm a Jonnu guy again. He does.
Jonnu.
Durham Smythe.
Yeah, but at this point,
it just sounds like somebody who steal credit card information or something.
Yeah. If you have to cut Durham Smythe, it's darn. Oh no.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lose sleep over that one. Nor am I gonna lose sleep over Claypool, Flacco, or Gabbert. I've already dropped Gabbert. Gabbert was just kind of one of those ones where it was a troll pick. I knew I was gonna drop it regardless. And then Flacco, he's we don't know if he's gonna resign anywhere. He's not gonna go back to Cleveland, so
P-Fink was cooking.
I don't really know. Look at Jonnu at the end.
Yeah, that Jonnu pick looks like a steal now.
Cooking over here too.
Jonnu's already going in the 16th round of startups.
That's fucking wild.
Damn.
Since if he's the guy in a yak-based offense, and he's always been a yak guy in his career.
It's just wild. I like Jonnu, and I definitely I'm happy I still have some shares. It's just wild the fact that he can go from 30 to 16. It's just a good observation of the market.
Yeah. I'm a Pats fan, Jake. I don't know if you knew that, but when Jonnu Smith signed with the Pats, I was super big on him. And then as soon as he actually started doing shit in Atlanta, I hated him. Mainly just because I'm just I want Pitts to do better. So I've just always had a love-hate relationship with him, and now I think I'm back to liking him.
Yeah, Jonnu saved a couple of my redraft teams where I went I literally just didn't draft a tight end. And I had to just pick up random dudes off the waiver wire all year. Jonnu saved a couple of those teams from Atlanta last year.
Hell
yeah.
Unsung hero.
Mm-hmm. So if I had to give myself a grade here, I'd probably say my team is an A-, and I'll say why I wouldn't give it an A. Is just because of my lack of a QB3 and the age of my running backs. That would make because obviously you can't have every single little thing in the draft. If you did, you had to have fleeced a couple people in some trades. But with the team that I had and giving up only a future second while, basically maintaining the production, having youth, I have almost anything I could ask for walking out of the draft, with the exception of a QB3. I think that's my biggest hole is the QB3.
Yeah.
And if Tua and Joe Burrow are healthy the whole season, then it doesn't matter. But as we saw last season, so many starting quarterbacks got hurt that it's always just nice to have that insurance of having a guy that that you can start and will produce for you even when things potentially could go wrong. Because we we all know this. We draft teams. We freaking love them. We drafted the best team ever. And then as
Yep.
soon as week 1 hits, we're like, oh, dude, I hate fantasy football. This shit sucks. Like, all my
Yep.
guys keep getting hurt. Like, this is not what I saw coming. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, but we can. I want to have as many avenues of success as possible, and I need to be prepared for anything. And I feel I'm pretty comfortable with that after this draft.
Yeah, I would give your team an A, and the only thing stopping it from being an A+ is if you had Engram instead of Mayer and Goddard. I think that alone would be an A+, because even though you don't have a quarterback 3, as long as one of them is healthy, you have talented enough players to fill that super flex spot.
Mhm.
Like I've won a championship where I only ever started one quarterback because I had so many. Like, it was one of the first dynasty leagues I ever did. Like, I was the only Justin Jefferson guy in the league, so I hit on him late and just tackled wide receiver value. But I had so many good wide receivers that my wide receiver who was in my super flex spot was putting up 15 plus points a week, which was better than half the team's QB2s.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and with how last season panned out, like there's probably someone that is back end that I could possibly acquire as it is, like Jaron Hall, for all we know. Like,
yeah.
It's gonna
So
cost you. It's gonna cost you. All right, I speak on behalf of Jake right now. It's gonna cost you.
Yep.
I'm
You
correct.
can direct all Jaron Hall inquiries through my lawyer, Boyd.
I'll get you a good bag.
oh god, now we're gonna have to start shilling Jaron Hall propaganda. I feel like that's what we're gonna have to do now on our Twitter.
That boy
We've
ass.
committed to the bit.
All right,
Hey.
I would give it an A- as well.
Honestly, that point that you made about if I had Engram, if I had Evan Engram at that Max Mayer pick, I would have kept my future second and then potentially gotten Aaron Rodgers. Like,
Yeah.
that would have changed my team completely if I was able to get Engram.
Even if you kept that trade and you just have Engram, but like you still made that trade, that would mean that you could have Will Levis, Stafford, Cousins, or Geno, or Russ, or Carr. Like, there's so many quarterback options that you could have there. Or even if you didn't do it, like you said, if you have Rodgers there, like you were so close to having like a perfect team, which again, hindsight 2020. But like if you have the team that you currently have minus Mayer plus Engram and minus Goddard plus Stafford, like that team's disgusting. I would Venmo you the money as opposed to doing a league safe.
Yeah, what's the league safe purpose
So
at this point?
now that you say that, I think what I was doing was I wasn't huge on that range of QBs, and I was afraid of missing out on the premium of the tight ends, and I was more confident that all 6 of those QBs that got picked right before that Hopkins pick, one of them was going to be there, but I knew Goddard and Kmet weren't going to get there, and that was the way I kind of sold myself making that deal in the first place. And then once Carr got picked, I'm just like, well, this sucks. Like,
Yeah.
it was this close because I didn't want to take Daniel Jones. I refused to take Daniel Jones. I have him in no leagues. I don't intend to ever have him in leagues. I've never had him in any leagues.
Bro's a tier 1
and
Daniel Jones hater.
I respect it. I'm right there with
I'm
you.
a Pats fan. I don't want Daniel Jones. Like, the only
Bro wakes
giant
up
that I'm
hating.
okay with having is Saquon. Well, not anymore. He's probably not going to be a giant anymore. But
He's gone.
I've never had anyone on my team that's been a giant. Not because I hate the Giants, but because they haven't really had many great fantasy assets outside of Saquon in the last few years. And obviously, we had Daniel Jones, monster season last year. But that's besides the point. I wasn't going to chase it. I was certainly not going to chase that year.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, even with that like context, like your team is still so good. Like you saw that those quarterbacks went, and you didn't make the mistake a lot of people do of being like, I need a quarterback right now. I'm gonna reach on one. Like, you were like, okay, I'll soak up the value here. I'm gonna get a Derrick Henry. I'm gonna get James Conner, and now I got some rookie picks, so I can be flexible and make some moves. Like, you handled the worst part of your great situation great.
I appreciate that. I mean, I did have Aiden O'Connell just chilling in the queue the whole time, just so that I was aware that he was still on the board.
Hey,
I like that you didn't pick Kenny Pickett.
that was the ultimate W, is not rostering Kenny Pickett.
True.
He's another person I will never roster. The only time I ever had Kenny Pickett on a roster is when I inherited that orphan Boyd and I traded Kenny Pickett, the 104 and the 108 last year for Justin Herbert.
W.
Ooh.
So that was the Flavortown League, Boyd, that I had taken over the guy that called you the Nazi commissioner, that you just booted him from all your leagues because he was just being a dickhead.
Yeah, I think he was in another league, the Valley, maybe one of the leagues that we were in as well. Jake, I can't remember his name. He was not a fan of the way we ran things,
which is super fair and lax. Like, why do you think? I'm in so many leagues with both of you.
I think what he was doing is he wasn't setting his lineups properly, and he was like tanking, and he was like, but it's like max 0.4 reverse, so it doesn't do anything besides just screw up seating. So we were just trying to tell him to set his lineup, and then he just was not having it. So I had to remove him from like 3 leagues.
I get it. I've had to remove people. It's never fun, but it's for the betterment of the league.
Yeah, you gotta do it so the league actually survives. Otherwise, it's just not gonna last.
But it's fine.
Sometimes biting the bullet is just the way to go.
Yeah. I'm also like, the guy I had to boot from a league was just, I messaged every single person in the league. I was like, if anybody here has a problem with me booting this guy, let me know now. And everybody was like,
go for it.
We get why you're doing it.
Yeah,
go for it.
Do what you gotta do.
And I booted him. He got mad on me on Twitter for like 2 weeks, and then
I remember that.
Made like
I remember that shit.
Yeah, made like 50 other people mad at him from going.
Pissed.
Yeah, bro's just not a good dude. Guy. He is. What a great guy. He'll tell you.
Yeah, I have actually a quick story if you guys don't mind. Just the one person that I've really had to remove.
Yeah,
there was a guy in a league that he was like the constant, like, person that would just talk shit of everyone's deals and DMs, and then he would bring them out in the league chat. And then he messaged me one time saying that, like, watch out for this other league member. He's a sleeper staff member. He banned my account for 4 hours. Like, he'll do that if he doesn't win. Like, just saying all this crazy shit. And this dude was a sleeper staff member. I knew this already. And I kind of just, I'm like, okay, I pretended to take his side so that he wouldn't erupt. And then I went and talked to this guy, and he sent me the screenshots of their entire conversation. And this dude was literally like, just egging him on to boot him offline, whatever, and that he couldn't get into his account. And he literally said that he booted him like out of like sleeper for like a minute just to show that he could do it. And this guy made it seem like he couldn't access his account for hours, and then he tried to get him removed. And I'm just like, dude, you've caused so many issues in the past, like, and like you just straight up lied to me. Like, I have literally the screenshots, and then I'm like, you can get your money back for 2 years from now. Request the refund. I don't give a shit, but you're not going to be in the league anymore. And then I sent him like a huge paragraph, and then his last 2 words were "fuck you," and then he blocked me on the app. It was so funny.
I love that.
He was typing for like 20 minutes, and then all it was just "fuck you."
He probably typed out 20 different things, and then was like, "I'm gonna stick it to him."
Yeah, I had made my decision.
I got him now.
Yeah. So
perks of being a commissioner.
Well, we've been going for almost 2 hours here. That was a hell of a analysis we did.
We love it.
I mean, we had a special guest, bro. We had to dive into it. We had to go.
I know.
You only get Jake Perry. It's cost me like $1 million. So you only get Jake Perry like once. Like,
my retainer fee is a bag.
This is all the budget had, dude. So we had to fill in that time with him.
Yeah, I mean, listen to his mic. It's better sounding than us, and
God,
this isn't even his podcast.
The best part is I can also do this. Like, hey, boy, you. I can do that. That's fun.
See, that's incredible.
Hey, boy,
he's ahead of the game. That's why his retainer fee is crazy.
It is, man. Got to pay for the Go XLR somehow.
I paid it. Yeah, that's why I paid it. All right, Ryan, you want to do the outro? You want to take it away?
Yes, sir. All right. Well, we appreciate y'all tuning in. Jake, it's been a pleasure.
What should we have them comment?
Great addition to this episodes. Jarrett Hall is the GOAT. That is what we're going to put in the comment section. If you guys have made it through this whole thing, we really appreciate it. Make sure you guys leave a thumb up on the video. Make sure you guys go follow us on all our socials, our TikTok. We're going to start posting stuff. check out Jake. We're going to put him in the link in the description. Check out our Twitter. Also, join the Discord if you haven't already. We're trying to build that up, so maybe you guys can get in some, startups that we could potentially host later down the line before the season starts. Who knows?
I'm always
But
hosting them.
yeah, Boyd
Degenerate.
is the goated commissioner here.
He is.
And
Degenerate.
we've been going for about 2 hours here, so we'll catch you all later. Hope you all enjoyed. Peace.
Goodbye.